The third round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series is a little under 25 minutes away, and with it, we welcome you to qualifying for the third round of the championship here at the Suzuka International Racing Course. Drivers in qualifying have 15 minutes to try and do the fastest lap they possibly can, but conditions are tricky here today at Suzuka. We have overcast conditions, 71 degrees Fahrenheit and an easterly wind of 5 miles an hour. It is cold in Japan right now, and some drivers really are struggling. In qualifying so far, iWCGPS is the fastest guy, and Hugo Luis currently is second place as far as it goes in qualifying right now. Williams-Toyota along with Scott Woodward and Carlos Passos. And Scott, I will come to you first. Very, very tricky conditions at Suzuka.
But isn't it always in a situation like this in an area like Japan? Of course, we've had many races in F1. We've had treacherous conditions. Not so much here, of course, for the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series today, but of course, it's going to make it difficult out there for you.
So, qualifying continues. As I say, it is Yakola from Louise, from Benito, from Hutu, from Kunkei. That is the times that we know about. There are 2 sessions going on. We'll give you full confirmation of qualifying times in a few moments' time. But Oli Picard is on his final lap. Can he improve as he comes down into the 130R, down into the triangle? He comes one more time. Will Oli Picard be able to potentially make it a Glacier Racing lockout on the front row? He's going to come past the start-finish line. The answer is going to be no, he won't. He will stay in the 5th position so far. So Yakola has the pole for the time being. Hugo Luis is on a lap. Will he be able to improve his qualifying time? The answer is going to be he's on a lap right now. And Carlos, Hugo Luis won 2 weeks ago at Interlagos. If he can get pole position here today, this will really set him up for a great championship.
Well, most definitely will. Well, Hugo is on a roll. He wants to win this race. He wants to take advantage of Hutu being stepped down for the last race, finishing 7th place only. So he's definitely going. He looks for another win because he wants to make sure that he's got enough points to conquer his 2nd World Championship Series.
So, Luis is coming down into the hairpin. It is all or nothing now for a one-time WCS championship. He comes out of the hairpin. Now it's that run down to the spoon curve. Hold it to the right-hand side of the racetrack. You got to brake so late. You need so much commitment into spoon. Really using that curve on the inside. A little bit on the exit there into spoon part 2. And now we'll come down the hill. A bit of a wiggle there for Hutu. So for Luis, that could be the difference maker as he runs down the hill. Just 2 more corners left to go, really, for Hugo Luis. The first, the 130R, it is flat out all the way. And now he comes down into the triangle, slow it all the way down, first gear to just 65 miles an hour. Really use that curve on the first apex. Then it's flat out all the way. You get a little bit of wheel spin on corner exit. But Hugo Luis does, yes, he does. Pole position there for Hugo Luis, and he gets it by just 2/100ths of a second. A 127.417 Hugo Luis got to pole position.
Magnificent stuff, and of course he is on momentum after he took that magnificent win at home and Interlagos, so he's in the best possible spot going forward to today's Grand Prix. The pressure's now on Hutu. He's the man that he's trying to catch. He's his biggest championship rival. He's going to be hard-pressed in the first few laps.
And it looks as though all of the guys now have done their laps. We have 22 guys in the session. What we're looking there is the simultaneous qualifying going on. We'll give you an update of what's going on in there in just 1 moment's time. But here, Hugo Luis, pole position once again in the 3ID Motorsports number 3 car, lining up alongside him, Alexei Yakola, just 2/100ths of a second separating them on the racetrack. Enzo Benito, once again, Scott, out qualifying Gregor Hutu for the 2nd race in a row.
And this just makes Hutu's task even more difficult. Of course, he's back down in the top 10 in 7th place in the points. He needs every result he can get to try and keep himself in it. And it's like we said in the pre-show, these first few races are going to be crucial for exactly who's going to be racing who for the championship. So Hutu cannot afford to make any mistakes off the start. He needs a lightning getaway to get up there, challenging Luis in the first couple of laps early in order to try and get the race lead to stand any chance of taking a win today.
And then Oli Picard rounds out your top 5. And the top 5 drivers are separated, get this, by just 2/10ths of a second. The field is a little bit more spread out than what we saw 2 weeks ago at Interlagos. But of course, this is a much longer track. The track in total measures 3.61 miles in length. There are 17 corners. We'll talk a little bit more about the track in more detail as we continue our pre-race coverage. But on the screen, we're going to get that lap up again from Hugo Luis. And then afterwards, we'll get a lap up from Alexei Yusiakola to show you the two differences that they had in their lines. But Carlos, overall, great qualifying by Hugo Luis. And if there's anything that he needed to do, it was get pole position here, because passing can be difficult, and this now opens a lot of strategy options up to Luis. He can now potentially go on the more risky two-stop strategy compared to the one-stop.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say, but I think if he does that, because he starts from the front, from pole position, which is the best, of course, that you can be. And Hugo Luis starting from the front. He's going to have a clear track. He's going to have a clear sailing through the whole first stint, which is going to be the longest one probably. And he's going to be okay. Doing like okay, he has to be ahead of Hutu. That's the only thing that he's thinking in mind right now. I have to be ahead of Hutu. Doesn't matter what kind of strategy that Hutu is. So that's what's going to happen today.
And so we're going to give you 4 results from qualifying in just 1 moment's time. But Hugo Luis, another pole position. And we talked about it on WCS Spotlight. We talked about it at the end of the last race. If Hugo Luis wanted to make a charge of the championship, he needed to grab that momentum early. And that is exactly what he has done. To run through your top 20 then, in qualifying for the 3rd round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series here on RaceSpotTV. Pole position goes to Hugo Luis in the 3ID Motorsports car. Qualifying time of 1 minute 27.417. Alexei Yusiakola lines up alongside him in row number 1, just 2/100ths of a second further back. Enzo Benito leads Team Redline's charge. He qualifies in the 3rd position. Gregor Hutu can only manage the outside of row number 2. Oliver Picard for Glacier Racing in 5th, with Martin Cronkite in the 6th position, also for 3ID Motorsports. And then it's Jake Sturgill for INX Racing in P7. Andre Borcher for 3ID Motorsports in PA. Martin Patilla in 9th, and then Twister Racing, Stephen Michaels rounds out your top 10. In 11th, Alex Simpson. 12th is Johnny Tamala. 13th, a great qualifying by Kazuki Omishima, out-qualifying all of his teammates. His teammate lines up alongside him, though, on the outside of row number 7, and that is Yuhu A. Row number 8 will be Christian Lorente in the 15th position. Jeremy Bootley for the Radical Steel Series team in the 16th position. Michelle Mancusi in the 17th spot. Mogar Filo, disappointing for him. 18th after qualifying 3rd last time out. 19th, Ilga Hapala. And then rounding out your top 20 is Isaac Price. Guys to know who did not qualify for the race: Jan Nizolowski, Jason Lover, Robin Friscott, Max Delorco, Matthias Egger, Marcus Cattard, Fabio De Carmo, and Lee Thompson. And Scott, some of those names are potentially people who could have really done something good at this race. Jason Lover, Max Delorco, this is not what we expect from those guys.
No, we saw it especially last season, of course, and in the first couple of races, that they do have the potential to really score great results. It's just luck of the draw sometimes, especially with these guys trying to get used to the conditions. Of course, the iRacing weather system is not something that was around wholly last year, so of course it was something they implemented kind of midway through 2013. So of course now they're kind of getting to experience Suzuka again, but in conditions that they probably wouldn't normally race in. So that's probably the challenge. And these guys like Max Delorco, who I have seen up the front and challenging people like Hugo Luis and Gregor Hutu down the field, but again, can be issues with traffic. It's quite difficult for circuit to make a pass on, and of course the fact that the conditions could be making it really tough out there for them. So those factors could really be playing a part as to why they're down the grid when they really should be much further up, challenging the front runners.
And of course, the rules of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series are this. There are 50 drivers with a WCS license. However, only 35 of them make the race. Now, there will be times when you see people racing up from the Pro Series of road racing up into the World Championship Series. However, for that to happen, you need to have less than 35 drivers qualify from these who have the WCS license, and then and only then can you get people racing up from the Pro Series. And we did see last year a number of drivers do that. Most notably, we saw Abe do it. A great second place at Indianapolis last season, and there's been other drivers who do it as well. As we look forward though to the race, Scott, one thing we did see in qualifying, it's very cold, and these drivers are really having to hassle their cars to get it going around the racetrack. And I think these first couple of laps, if you want to find a way to make a pass, you can, but you've got to be oh so careful, because one clip of a white line, when those tyres are cold, it's race over.
Yeah, I mean, normally, obviously, from what I believe, it's usually a lot of lukewarm track with warm tyres are usually the best kind of conditions, but when the track's stone cold like this, effectively means that getting up to temperature is incredibly difficult. And of course, with a circuit like this, even though it has lots of high-speed corners, you know, the nature of the circuit and the actual conditions out there are going to make it very tough. And as you said, of course, one small slip, and any of these fast corners, particularly corners such as 130R, you put a wheel onto the curb with conditions like this on the exit of 130R, on a corner where you're going through at some 190 miles an hour, you get it wrong, and it's curtains for anyone who hits that barrier.
And Carlos, when we come back to think about who did well at this track last season, it was the two guys who we always talk about. Hugo Louise won the spring race, and then it was Gregor Husu who won the race in the autumn, and potentially Hugo Louise can now make it back-to-back wins in the spring race at Suzuka, and he's always been good here. He's always been a very close track though between Redline and Free ID, the top two teams in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. It does look as though that Free ID have the advantage, but we cannot also discount the likes of Benito, the likes of Hutu, but also the two Glacier Racing drivers of Yakola and Pakala.
Oh, most definitely. It's one of those things. It's too bad that we don't have Atsi and we don't have, like, let's say, Luke McLean, because Atsi had a great race last season. He finished in third here, and he's going to be doing his own racing. So it's one of those things. But as far as Hugo Louise and Gregor Hutu, it looks like that every race that we watch, and the next race and the next race, it's our Hugo Louise and Gregor Hutu fighting for the first position. So I think those guys that comes from the back, they're gonna have a lot of chance. Depends on the strategy. But as you mentioned, the tires are kind of what kind of tire pressure they're gonna use, because the temperature is not usually as they so used to it. So then it's very different. So the tires degradation or things like that, we have to see how far in the stand that they're gonna make they like fast laps, or they're gonna be able to compete with Gregor Hutu and Hugo Louise, because it's very hard. But what about Jake Stergers, you know, and Martin Kronk and all those guys? So we have to see, because it's gonna be very, very, very nice racing.
We're looking forward to a great race here at Suzuka. There are so many variables, and we'll start by looking, Scott, at that strategy, because strategy here can be interesting. And I talked to a couple of teams before this race, and they said, if you're really risky and you can make the passes and get some clean air in the early going, you can try a two-stopper. The safe option is the one-stopper, because that also gives you more time to get the tyres up to temperature. Now, I've talked to a couple of people, and they said actually, because of the cold conditions, they might not actually need to take tyres the entire race. It'll be fuel only, and therefore, it then comes back down to how much penalty the fuel is going to give you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the key thing, of course, is the narrow nature of the circuit. It means that if you can't make the passes early on, you have no choice but to rely on a one-stop. Because, you know, if it does go wrong, of course, and you are on a two-stopper and you do get held up in that traffic, then really that is kind of game over for your race. If you are getting held up, not able to make those crucial passes, then you are not going to be up anywhere near the front, and that is going to really hurt your chance of getting a serious result. But I think in terms of, you know, the guys on the one-stoppers, of course, they're going to have to really push, and if anyone's going to go on a safe bet, you would go on a one-stopper. So I mean, also, I think obviously with the fact that, you know, the fact that we've got the cold tyres, we've got the colder conditions as well, could mean that those going on a one-stopper could go longer than they were expecting, because of course it means that, you know, a cooler tyre basically means that it's not going to wear and degrade at the same rate as a tyre that's working in warmer conditions. So maybe we might see drivers that were looking to maybe pit around possibly half distance could eke it out, possibly could find themselves eking their strategy out a few further laps to gain a bit more of an advantage, especially if they're in a crucial fight for position, which could gain them some serious points in the championship.
Highlights from qualifying are still playing on your screen for those of you who are just joining us. It is Hugo Louise, who is in the dying moments of qualifying, able to snatch pole position away from Alexei Yakola. So you've got a MyFreeID driver and a Glacier Racing driver on the front row of the grid. However, Carlos, going back to that strategy conversation, what we had was the first round of the season, the later you could go, the better your chance of winning the race was. At Interlagos, it looked as though if you're on a two-stop strategy, you're going to be much faster than if you're on a one-stop strategy. Here, it's a lot more even, but traffic can be so difficult here, especially with lapped cars. If you catch lapped cars in the wrong place, I'm thinking, you know, through Sector 1, through the S's, through the Dunlop curve into the Dengers, that can really ruin your race. And you've got to bear in mind the speed of lap traffic when you think about potential strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And we have to keep in mind as well, not only the traffic that you get the guy on the wrong place or whatever. So, but most of the drivers, they are pretty nice. They keep the F3 happening. No,
there's definite potential for it.
Okay, we're going to step aside for just a moment, and then we'll be back with race coverage of the third round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from Suzuka. We'll be right back. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RaceSpotTV's exclusively live coverage of the third round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from Suzuka International Racing Course. This track measures 3.61 miles in length, has 17 corners, and I tell you what, the conditions on track are difficult today. Race humidity is 41%, an easterly wind of 5 miles an hour, but it's dark, it's overcast, and track temperature is a mere 71 degrees Fahrenheit. For those of you who are just joining us, good afternoon. Earlier on, we saw in qualifying Hugo Louise taking pole position by just 2/100ths of a second from Alexei Uciacola. Enzo Benito lines up in the third place with Gregor Hutto in fourth, Oli Picard in fifth, Martin Kroenke, Jake Sturgios, Andre Borcha, Martin Patila and Stephen Michaels rounding out your top 10. Will Vincent, along with Scott Woodward and Carlos Passos. Don't forget, you can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/RaceSpotTV, also on Twitter at RaceSpotTV. For more information about the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, head over to wcs.iracing.com. And if you're new to iRacing, you can start your membership on iRacing for as little as just $5 for your first month's membership. Now, Scott, as we head forward to the race, just 2 minutes left of practice before the drivers head to the grid. What are people trying to do in these last couple of moments?
It's purely just to try and grab some feedback in the setup, of course. They're trying to get themselves off of qualifying mode and into race mode now, of course. They're adapting to how the car feels on a heavy fuel load, onto the tyres they're going to be using for the race as well, and just to basically get a feel for how the car setup's going to adjust in the first couple of laps going forwards. So, I mean, these guys are just getting out there just to get themselves into the groove. They've obviously done their hot laps. They're going to think about the long game now, and also what strategy they're going to implement, and how they're going to attack the first few laps and the first stint to try and make sure they can make up as many places as they can and get themselves in the optimum position by the time they come to make their first stop on pit road. So we're going to see some very fast and frantic first few laps to try and see cars grabbing track position in the first few laps to try and gain places up and down the order. It's going to make for hopefully an awesome spectacle, as we saw last year near the end of the season at Suzuka. So fingers crossed we get more of the same this afternoon.
And Carlos, before we head ourselves down to the race grid, who are you keeping your eye on today? Who do you think could take victory? Is it going to be Louise, or could one of the Glacier guys do it? Perhaps one of the Team Redline guys?
Well, it could be a surprise, but Alex Jacqueline, he's right there. He has everything to win this race. I mean, if he can get to pass Hugo Louise on the first corner, let's say on the second corner, he'll be able to win the race, okay? But we have Enzo Bonito, and we can never forget about Hutto. Hutto usually don't start as good as Hugo Louise, but if he can get to start really good and gain a couple of positions or so on the first couple of corners, so he could be leading the race on lap 3. I mean lap 3 or lap 2 or so. So that's the way I see.
Drivers will have just 10 seconds left of practice before the checkered flag comes out to wave, signifying the end of practice. To run through your qualifying results one more time, it's Hugo Louise pole position. Alongside him in row number 1, Alexei Uciacola. Row number 2, Enzo Benito and Gregor Hutto. Row 3 is Oli Picard and Martin Kroenke. Row number 4, Jake Sturgios, Andre Borcha. Row number 5, Martin Patila and Stephen Michaels. Row 6, Alex Simpson and Yorni Tamala. Row 7, Kazuki Omishima and Yuhu Abe. Row number 8, Christian Lorenz and Jeremy Bouteloup. Row number 9, Michelle Mancusi and Mogar Filo. Row 10, Ilka Hapada and Isaac Price, with the rest of the qualifying times coming up on your screen momentarily. The cars are lined up on the grid. They're going set to go racing today for a total of 53 laps around the Suzuka International Racing Course, 17 corners, 3.61 miles in length, and there are a multitude of questions to be answered. Can Hugo Louise make it back-to-back victories and really cement his championship charge? Can Alexei Uciacola steal one from the Brazilian and claim his first victory in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series? What can Benito do? What can Gregor Hutto do? Can he potentially get from fourth all the way to first? We're going to find out as those lights begin to go on top of the iRacing.com gantry. The third round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series starts right now, and it's a really good start there by Oli Picard. He goes 4 wide there, down into turn number 1, but here comes Yakola to the race lead potentially. He's got the inside line into turn 2. Yakola gets the job. Hugo Louise falls down into the 2nd position. But you've got Oli Piccardo already up into the 3rd spot. Martin Kroenke, a great start. What a bad start though by the 2 red line drivers. They are now down in the 5th and 6th positions on the racetrack. Hutu was able to get ahead of Benito, but they are both now at the rear end of the top 5. Leading out front, Alexei Yakola down into Daniel 2 for the first time. Hugo Louise right behind him. Oli Piccardo on the charge, and Martin Kroenke potentially looking for a pass into the hairpin. Not quite close enough. What a start there, Scott, by Alexei Yakola, but also by Oli Piccardo. 2 amazing starts by the 2 Glacier Racing drivers.
Well, we said these guys are going to be deadly, and they haven't disappointed. What an awesome jump from Yakola. He just dropped the clutch at the optimum point, and he's off that grid like a scolded cat. But already, Luis is giving him a hurry up as it exits Spoon Curve and onto the back straight through the crossover for the first time. Piccardo's doing a great job holding his station ahead at the moment of Martin Kroenke and Gregor Hutu as they head up towards 130R. Very fierce from corner, 190 miles an hour, absolutely flat here, no hints of lifting at all, and down towards the Casio Triangle. But there's initially a breakaway pack of 6, and then Enzo Benito heads the rest of the field in 7th, and onto the pit straight for the first time. Hugo Louise already giving chase to Yakola as they have 52 more laps of racing still to go.
And here they come past the start-finish line. The gap was 4 tenths per second there between Alexei Yakola and Hugo Louise. There is great racing going on in the mid-pack as well as they come down into turn number 1 for their 2nd lap of the race. We'll get you a review of any incidents that happened as Tommy Nilsson's looking down to the inside of Paul Ilbring. Not going to be quite close enough to make the pass down into turn number 1. But I tell you what, a couple of guys have had some great starts to this race. Michelle Chesney, however, is on pit road, so he's going to get himself some repairs to his race car. And I believe that's actually his teammate onto pit road as well. Kazuki Omishima is on pit road, as is Simon Cattell. So 3 cars involved in incidents at the start of this race, but there is drama all the way up and down the field. And Alexei Yakola, it does look as though he is trying to pull away from Hugo Louise right now, Carlos, but not quite close enough because Louise is able to break away with Yakola. Piccardo is falling back.
Yeah, I can see what Yakola's probably on the same strategy of Hugo Louise because they probably on the same pace. But I'm very surprised. I mean, Hutu had a terrible start from the race. I mean, terrible. But what I'm thinking is maybe Hutu is very heavy. Maybe he's going to do one of those long stints he done before and works for him before in the past. So I don't know if he's going to work at Suzuka, but he's already losing touch with the 4th guy. So meaning, I think Hutu is very heavy on a different strategy.
There's a little bit of drama towards the rear of the field. Dion Verges, Timo Evenen and Ilka Hapada. Hapada got very loose down at Spoon Curve and really backed the rear of that pack up, and now they're going side by side as they come down to 130. I tell you what, Alexei Aloma almost ran into the rear of, I believe that was Miguel Martin, as they came down into the triangle for the 2nd lap of the race. And then, look at that, Aloma just spinning that car. He tried to dive bomb down the inside of Martin. Very lucky, actually, that he didn't run into Lasse Brun Hansen in the number 47 Apex Racing car, but a bad start to the race for Alexei Aloma. However, Alexei Yakola continues to lead this race as we're now working ourselves onto lap number 3. And now, Scott, finally, those tyres are going to get a little bit of grip in them. Overcast conditions mean those first couple laps were dicey, but we are now finally starting to get some heat into those tyres as this field starts to settle down.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, as I said, the high-speed corners in this circuit is certainly going to help get the temperature in despite the coldest of temperatures. And I think also, of course, hopefully as this race goes on, possibly the temperatures might start to increase a little bit as we get more rubber and, of course, as the race goes on, burning off more fuel. But Yakola is still holding on for the moment, but Luis is actually starting to go with him, and those two starting to break away already, so we could be seeing a 2-horse race at the moment for the lead, as we see, of course, that Oli Piccardo is being lined up possibly with Martin Kroenke, and he's closing in down towards 130R, and already, incredibly, to touch on the point that Carlos made, of course, Hutu's falling back from these guys and possibly could be running heavy as he is coming under pressure in possibly soon from both his teammate Enzo Benito and Andrea Bircher and possibly Jake Sturgios, as these 3 bring the rest of the pack with them as they come back onto the pit straight. But hopefully we'll see these guys not suffering too much. I think we have some damage down the midfield as well.
Yeah, we do. We'll come back to that one in just a moment's time to bring you up to date with the Hutu situation. Of course, the first round of the championship, we saw how far Hugo Louise went into that race, and it's a very similar situation here. If you can go longer, you can make a lot of time up towards the end of the race, but you've got to be careful in the early going, not to lose too much time, not to lose too many positions. Of course, Hutu is a master of all strategies. To give you an update on retirees, Simon Cattell is running at the rear of the field, but all 35 cars are still circulating on the racetrack. A little bit of beating and banging, but so far, no real harm, no real foul. As Julian Arumi, as I say that, goes off, and of course, he's running in his home race, and that was out the final part of turn number 1 there. Just seems to be he got a little bit loose on the exit of turn 2, Carlos, and he spun himself around. He's going to fall well down the order because of that.
Oh, for sure. We have 3 Japanese here today doing their own race. So we have Iwo Hoabi, and we have, of course, I forgot his name.
Rumi, and also Kazuki Mashima.
And Mashima. So we have 3 Japanese. I mean, they want to look good here at Suzuka, but it's one of those things. The level is so hard. The grip is not that good. I can see too Alex Saloma having a lot of problems with gripping. He's coming out of the corners like he's already shaking everywhere. So it's kind of they probably looking for a grip for sure.
Hugo Luis running on board of him. He was much closer to rear of Yakola down into the triangle there as they completed lap number 4 of the race. The gap is right now just 3/10 of a second. But Scott, this is where you're going to lose time if you're the car trailing, because of the fact the wind 5 miles an hour to the east, it gives you so much dirty air already, and then when you're behind the car, look at how that gap just goes up to about 4 car lengths through the S's. But Luis does seem to be, he can make all that time up as they run it down through the 130 yard down into the triangle. Yakoda has got to be careful because the triangle easily the best place to overtake on this racetrack today.
Yeah, without a question, of course. And we've talked about it a couple of times already. This very narrow, winding nature of the circuit with these long corners doesn't help the fact that if you're stuck in that dirty air, of course, you're losing the downforce, you're losing the aerodynamic grip that you build up, of course, at high speed. So Hugo Luis is taking advantage of the fact that he has the speed and the grip advantage and the mechanical grip advantage, both mechanical and aero, through the high-speed corners when there's a little bit of a distance. And of course, as we see, he's awesome under brakes as well, which is where he gains all that time back, as we said, into the Casio triangle. But he needs to be really, literally underneath Yusi Yakola's rear wing by the time they get onto the pit straight to stand any chance of making a move. But we have to say, Yusi Yakola doing an awesome job so far of withstanding the pressure of the championship lead, but he's getting very close once again, exactly as we saw like we did last time. And again, just in under brakes. Again, see Hugo is closing that gap. But watch now, with the benefit of the clear air, Yusi Yakola gets the power down, nice exit onto the pit straight, and he does pull away. Hugo Luis will have the toe, but it's not going to pull him in close enough to get him any chance of taking him a lead. Just behind, I can notice as well, there's a small battle still going on between Ollie Pacala and Martin Crockett for 3rd place. They're still separated by, at the moment, by about a quarter of a second, and they both dropped Gregor Hutu by 1.4 seconds. He's in a bit of no man's land here, some clean air, but not for starting to fall back, possibly with that heavy fuel load as a result.
And that battle continues in 3rd and 4th positions. Of course, the one thing that Picard and Cronke need to do is not fight too hard, because that will really give the opportunity for Hutu, Borcha, Benito, Sturgis, Patila and Michaels to all close back up. These 2 battles going on out front. You've got yourself about 4 packs now running inside the top 10. Andre Borja has fallen behind Gregor Hutu. In fact, Hutu's been able to pull away just a little bit now. Benito is struggling in this race, and we saw this in the first round of the championship, how he wasn't very happy with heavy fuel loads early on. He's lost another position now to Andre Borja, moving him down into 7th place on the racetrack, and he's got Jake Sturgis in the Inex Racing car right behind. And of course, the Inex Racing cars are the one car you do not want to have behind you as you come into a very long straightaway. Because always the Inex Racing cars have got some of the best grip and also straight line speed in this series. Outside of the top 10, however, there are still battles going on up and down the field. Antoine Hegling, Michel Mancusi are battling right now for P17, P18 on the racetrack, but the field's spreading out a lot earlier on than you'd almost expect to see, Carlos, and this shows the multitude of strategies. The biggest pack, however, is all the way from about B8 on the racetrack, Jake Sturgis, all the way down to about P13 on the racetrack, and that is Jeremy Bouteloup right now.
Yeah, for sure. It's different strategies, so people has to be relied on. And the other thing that we talked about earlier a little bit, who's gonna change tires or not? Are they gonna replace tires or not? Because with being so cool, maybe the tires is good for the whole race, right? And as far as Jake Sturgis, we know Jake Sturgis, he's always quiet, very quiet, and he's collecting points, he's always ahead, so he's always collecting a lot of points because he does his race so clean. He's like, he reminds me Emerson Fittipaldi when he used to race so clean, and Emerson always so meticulous and racing put his cars on apex all the time, not losing apex, not losing anything, and you just gain position. So Jake is one of those guys.
There are a couple of people with some damaged front wings as well. There's a little bit of contact at the early going of the race. We'll get a replay of the start-up in just a couple of laps' time. As we run through your top 10, however, it is Yakola leading by 4 tenths per second. He has eked out a 10th over Hugo Louise, but they now have a 2-second advantage over Oli Picard, who's running in the 3rd position on the racetrack. Gregor Hutu is in the 5th position as Martin Kroenke is ahead of him right now. And then in 6th is Andre Borges, 7th is Enzo Benito, 8th is Jake Sergios, 9th is Martin Patila, and then rounding out your top 10 is Stephen Michaels. But again, Louise gets a better run that time out of the final corner, and this is going to give him the slipstream he needs down into turn number 1. And this is where, for those of you who are just joining us, Yakola made the pass on the inside into turn number 1. He was able to hold it nice and tight, then get the good run through the exit of the corner. But it's his first sector where mechanical and aero grip is so important that Louise loses just a little bit of time, and that means he can't really gain any advantage to potentially make a pass down into the hairpin. He has to wait until the latter part of the lap to potentially make a charge. Now, let's look down the field just a little bit, because Sturgis has fallen off in the rear of Enzo Benito a little bit, but coming under pressure, Scott, from Martin Patila in that battle for P8.
Yeah, fantastic battle coming down the lower rungs of the top 10 as we have a look at it. And Jake Sturgis, of course, he's got a long train of cars behind him, of course, as he's trying to keep chase with Enzo Benito in front of him. For himself, he's trying to close in on Andre Borgia, but Jake is, as Carlos said, he's just very quietly running about his own race, but he's got a train of 5 cars. He's made up of Piatella, Michael, Tamala, Arbe and Butali. So that's the battle going on from 8th down to 13th. And Sturgis, they all seem to be as fast as each other, really. We're not really getting too much time on each other, to be honest. The gaps between all of them is roughly the same, about half a second each. And it's rather consistent and quite significant, because it's 6.6, 7.1, 7.6, this is relative to the leader. 6.6, 7.1, 7.6, 8.1, 8.6. So they're all literally half a second winning each other, and the gap's not really coming down. So it just shows just how consistently these guys are putting in the lap times, and they're all running an incredibly similar, if not identical, pace to each other. So Sturgis is the one that's controlling it, and these guys are just happy to follow for the moment. But these guys look as though they're the ones that aren't exactly on the pace of the race leaders, but are going to be running a one-stop strategy and running that little bit longer into the race. And of course, running with these cooler temperatures, as we've talked about before, will allow them to run a little bit longer, of course, as the degradation and wear will not be as high as in the warmer temperatures which we might normally experience here or at other circuits. So Sturgis might be in a good position, could possibly get himself a couple more places by running longer and just playing the waiting game through the latter part of this first stint. But he could maybe find himself with a couple more places up by the time the pit stops shake themselves out later on in this race.
Martin Kroenke last time by set the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1 minute 30.638. Out front, fastest lap for Yakola is a 1:30.687. Hugo Louise is on a mighty lap right now, however. To give you an update on how this compares to Gregor Hutu, he is consistently between 3 to 4 tenths of a lap slower, and that really does indicate that he is potentially on this alternate strategy here today. Of course, a little bit of that will come down to driver skill, but Louise gets a much better run out of Spoon Curve than what he's had so far in this race, but not quite close enough to really make a charge over Yakola. Now, one of the things you have to bear in mind is actually sometimes you don't want to be right on the rear of the car coming down into the triangle, because what that does is it limits the opportunity for you to then get on the power coming out of the corner. This time, a good run for both Yakola and Louise coming out of the triangle, but Louise still not quite close enough on that run down to turn number 1. You see, it's about 3 car lengths as the car just coming out of pit road to the right-hand side of your screen, and as they come down to turn number 1, it is status quo once again. Last time by a 1:30.3, however, for Hugo Louise, and a 1:30.3 for Alexei Yakola. All of a sudden, these guys are just flying out front. So then, to run through the rest of your top 20 from 11th place back, Giovanni Tamada right now is running in the 11th position. He is pulled away a little bit from Yuhu Abe. He's running in the 12th position right now. Jeremy Boosley at the rear of that train in P13. He's got a 3-second advantage over Christian Laurent, who runs in the 14th position. Mo Garfilo, a difficult day for him right now after a great performance at Interlagos 2 weeks ago. He runs in the 15th position. Also disappointing day so far for Isaac Fries, who's running in the 16th spot, and he's looking as though he's got potentially a little bit of front wing damage. Antoine Hegelet in the 17th position, Michel Mancusi in 18th, Fulvio Barazini in 19th, and then Paul Ilbrink round out your top 20 cars. But Carlos, we are now 10 laps into this race, and really, it's all going to come down to, I think, can Yakola and Louise pull out enough of a gap to make sure that Hutu doesn't catch him up during pit stops.
Yeah, it's gonna be something to say. My God, let's see what's gonna happen, because definitely Hutu, he's much heavier than the guys in the front, and the guys on the back, they are already 10 seconds behind. Let's say Jeremy Botloop. So depends on the strategy of those guys too. And as far as Martin Kroenke could be a surprise too, because we know Martin Kroenke is gonna be in the head. He's probably on the lighter fuel as well. So he's gonna be right there. I think Hutu and Martin Kroenke is gonna be very close to the strategy too. They could be 102 or something, you know.
And we've got to bear in mind, I think the dark horse of this race right now, Scott, is potentially Martin Kroenke. He was able to get second place at Interlagos 2 weeks ago, just by really keeping his nose clean. Yes, he did have that spin early on in the race, about this point actually, into the race. However, Kroenke is one of those drivers who you can never discount. And yes, we're talking about those top 3 drivers and Hutu. You cannot ever discount Martin Kroenke, because that German driver is always so calm and calculated. And someday he will find himself just leapfrogging everyone.
Absolutely, and the fact he's already set a fastest lap of the race at this point, only 10 laps in, does prove the fact that he does have the pace to run at the front. And of course, he's proving that, of course, and justifying it with the 4th place, keeping in touch with Ollie McCallum at the moment, and even keeping Gregor Hutu at bay and slightly pulling the gap. So, but of course, we know that could possibly be down to the fact that Hutu is running a heavier fuel load, and possibly looking to go a few laps longer to take advantage of these cooler conditions. But great to see that Kurt Martin is keeping Ollie honest at the front, of course, and effectively they're feeding off each other here, which is really nice. What I've just seen very quickly behind is that Andre Bircher is in a similar position to that of both Kroenke and Luis. The fact that they are, it's quite intriguing, the fact that all 3 of these My 3 ID drivers are all in exactly the same position. They're all battling to try and get past the car in front, and while they do close down the back straight down through 130R into the Casio Triangle, they're all just not close enough by the time they get onto the straight, and they're all suffering from the same problem of that dirty air through the fast corners and losing with the aerodynamic and mechanical grip. So My 3 ID are going to have to try and pull a few fast ones here in the pit stops to try and at least get themselves a couple more positions and leapfrog all 3 of these cars that they're trying to get past. Because of course if they don't, they're going to have some real problems at least trying to get through traffic later on in the race as the race winds down to its finishing stages.
And also, let's not forget that gearing can be a critical factor of this. And you always set your gearing for your car based upon where you qualify. Some drivers, they're way down the field, they deliberately put in an extra long 7th gear, knowing they're going to pass cars, which means that when they're in traffic, they're a little bit faster. In clean air, they potentially haven't got the top speed they need. There are some guys, I think, right now, who just haven't got their gearing and their downforce level set up they need to really make these passes. And it is a little bit of a procession right now. But let's not forget, this is Suzuka, one track where you really can't make any mistakes, because those travel craps, they will really slow you down. Retirees in this race so far, David Korps is out of the race. He is now classified as 7 laps down. He had an incident on lap number 4 of this race, and he just parked it at the side of the racetrack and down into the Dunlop curve. Lasse Hansen, he parked his car down into turn number 1 and is now also out of the race. Getting word that something's happened potentially with Michel Chesney as well, as he is now out of the race as well. We'll get an update of what's happened there in just 1 second time. Again, he's just parked his car at the side of the racetrack and is now classified as out of the race. Yokola is beginning to build up the pace compared to Hugo Luis just a little bit. Those last couple of laps, Carlos, he pulled out 2/10 of a second.
He's definitely gaining a little bit in there. And as far as Hugo Luis, he's keeping there. Say he's only got 5 tenths on UC Jockler. So, well, let's see what's going to happen. But one thing that I like to mention too is different tracks, different drivers likes one track better than the other. And Suzuka is a very hard track to keep your pace in every lap. So, is one of the guys that has a little bit less wing or more wing. They can be faster or could be slower, and it depends on the corners. So, they all depends on setups as well, as far as the drivers in the front, you know.
Working ourselves now on lap number 13 of 53 in the 3rd round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series here on RaceSpotTV. And I tell you what, that last lap, Borja has lost a lot of time to the rear of Gregor Hutu as he's had himself a difficult lap. However, behind them, Yoni Tamada and Stephen Michaels, they are battling right now, Scott, for the last place in the top 10. Now, Michaels had a tough day at Interlagos 2 weeks ago. He's looking to rebound, and it's one of those Twister Racing stables who you always seem to put together a couple of decent results. Tommy Nilsson last time out, great result by him. Michael's looking to again get a nice solid top 10 finish, but he's got Jordi Tomala right on his rear.
Again, of course, another MyTrueID driver, not exactly maybe having the race he would like to, or having difficulties getting past another car. But it's good to see a Twister Racing car up there in the top 10. Stephen Michael's doing a very respectful job at the moment. And I have to say, just on a side note, the liveries for this year, all of them for Twister Racing look absolutely superb, especially Stephen Michael's with the wonderful contrast of blue and white in there as well. But Stephen Michael's doing a great job to hold on to the last point spot, but of course he's going to have some very tough competition as he's got 3 very hungry drivers behind us. You see Tomala getting very sideways on the exit as they head into the hairpin, with Yuha and Jerry Boostley also scrapping amongst themselves. But a great job so far as they head on the end of lap 14. And Michael's trying to just push on, but of course if he can try and catch Piatella, he's going to have his work cut out, as he really is struggling out there to try and keep up with the 9th place machine in front of him.
Indeed he is, and Piatella still on the rear of Jake Sturgis as they continue their battle for the 8th position right now on the racetrack. A little bit of lap traffic is starting to come into play as well. One thing I am noticing, actually, in a straight line, the red line cars are not looking that fast. Part of that will come down to the fuel load, but historically, a bit like Red Bull in Grand Prix racing, Red Line have always been a car which has worked better in the corners and a little bit slower in a straight line. And already, Benito taking a very defensive line. In fact, he was right there down to the wall as they came out the final corner and running past the start-finish line, taking really the shortest way around the racetrack as that battle continues. Gaps between your top 2 drivers to Oli Picala is now up to 3 seconds on the racetrack. Between the top 2 drivers and Gregor Hutu, it is now 5.6 seconds on the racetrack. And then the gap to Jake Sturgis, who's in 8th, that is now 10.5 seconds as we work ourselves on lap number 15 in this race. Michel Mancusi and Antoine Hegling are battling for 17th and 18th positions on the racetrack. Now, most of the people in this race so far, Scott, have kind of running where they started, with the exception of those 2 Glacier Racing drivers. No real big movers in this race so far. The start was a lot cleaner than we actually expected it to be, and not as much overtaking as we potentially thought there could have been.
No, I think it's probably because the fact of the cold nature means, and of course the fact that there are so many cars running as close as they are at the moment, that's really negating any kind of potential to make any overtakes. Of course, we know that Suzuka's quite a narrow circuit in itself, as well as being rather high speed, so those 2 factors possibly could be a problem. Then again, of course, it's not like Monza where you've got these plenty of long straights. It's more high-speed corners and straights, so there's not really that many chances to make a pass. Of course, a chance down here, down into turn 1, so I'm just watching the leaders come back down across the start and finish straight to start lap number 16. These guys, of course, into turn 1, you can try and make the pass inside or outside. It does work. It's been done in both occasions many times before. But I mean, obviously, I think it's become one of those races where it relies on pit stops rather than on-track passes to decide to shake up the order. I think it all depends on who looks after their tyres in these colder conditions and who can manage their fuel load the best, and who can also manage the pressure of any cars behind. It's really going to see themselves get a few further up place. And also, of course, traffic's going to play a massive part as the pit stop strategies shape themselves out during the middle part of this race. Also, the 2 stoppers are going to have to. Also, there's not really working out for the 2 stoppers either. We did say, of course, if they're stuck in traffic, the 2 stop strategies go to pot. If they haven't made a pass by now, it's not working.
Don't forget, immediately before the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, RaceSpotTV presents WCS Spotlight. Join myself, Will Vincent, Nick Rodin and Scott Woodward every week as we review all the action from the previous round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, as well as looking forward and a plethora of big interviews with drivers who make up the 2014 class of WCS drivers. That is every Saturday immediately before the race. Start time for that is 1 PM GMT. Right now, you have got Yakola and Luis still battling for those top 2 positions. You've got Kroenke all over the rear of Oli Picala, and you've got Gregor Hutu really running in no man's land right now because he's been able to pull out a gap over Andre Borcha. Borcha, in those last couple of laps, Carlos, he has started to fall back, and this is why Hutu is such a good driver, because he can just pull away from drivers, get that draft effect out of the way, and now just start turning laps himself, not worrying about having to depend on cars behind.
Yeah, Andre Borch is probably the same strategy as Gregor Hutu. So they are heavy and they just trying. And what I think is they're not putting pressure on anybody in here. They just like to, okay, I'm gonna go on with my strategy. I don't wanna pass anybody. Maybe I'll make it up sometime on the pits, because it's one of those things, like the different weather condition makes a little bit different on your strategy as well, because maybe they thinking really, okay, I can save some fuel going 1/10 to 10 slower and maybe go 2 laps more than the other guys, so that's what's going to happen.
Meanwhile, we have got some action. You see it on your screen right now. Very big mistake there on the racetrack, and we'll get ourselves a replay of that again to show you exactly what happened on the racetrack. But battles, I say, they are kind of a bit slim right now on the racetrack, and the replay is now up on your screen. We'll see what happens there. But, Scott, one of the things that we have got to bear about as well in this race is the fact that drivers aren't just running to get the championship. Some drivers are running to really get themselves established in the top 25 in points. The way that WCS licenses work is, at the end of the year, if you're inside the top 25 points, great. There's your license for the following year. If you're outside the top 25, you have to run in the iRacing.com Pro Series of road racing. We know how competitive that is year on year. Some drivers, if they don't make the top 25, might not be back for 2015. And we all know, as far as getting points goes, you just got to finish every single race and get the best result you possibly can and keep your nose clean.
Yeah, consistency is the name of the game in this championship, of course, and these guys, of course, the majority of them, well, they're not racing for the win, they will be racing for those crucial points to keep themselves, as you said, in that precious top 25. And of course, the time when it really starts to get nerve-wracking is near the end of the season, when there are very close battles in and around that kind of that top 25 area, where kind of you sit on the bubble of possible whether or not you're in or whether or not you're out. So these guys, of course, they have to get legwork done right now. Keep that, as you said, keep their noses clean and just grab whatever points they can, as many points as they can. As you go, they're getting a little bit unwind on the exit spoon curve, just so I meant to see that on my screen, and just really just get their head down and really just keep out of trouble as much as they can, of course. But not everyone can avoid every incident, but of course, if the more they can avoid, the more that gives them the chance to really build that points tally towards the end of the season, when they can assure themselves of another spot in the championship next season.
Yahoo Abe closing the gap up to Yorni Tamada in the battle for the 11th and 12th positions right now. Now, last time Yahoo Abe set his fastest lap of the race, that was a 1 minute 30.172, and that was 2 tenths of a second faster than Yorni Tamada. Yahoo Abe has had a very interesting season. He ran a couple of races last year, raced up from a Pro Series driver to a WCS driver. He's got himself his full-time license for 2014. Really one of the new favourites, of course, racing at his home track. And we make 4 trips to Japan in the 2014 season. The one today, we go to Twin Motegi, we go to Okayama, formerly known as Tsuyoda, and then we come back in the fall towards the end of the championship season to Suzuka once again as part of our double header of races, which seasons go to Spa, Interlagos and Suzuka twice in the season. Now, Enzo Benito has started to get himself back on pace. However, he is now behind Jake Sturgis. Sturgis has been able to make a pass there. We'll get ourselves a replay of that. That's just happened. That was down into turn number 1, Carlos. Jake Sturgis making a move because a big wiggle there by Enzo Benito, clipping a white line on the exit of turn number 2.
That was a great pass, man. That was an awesome pass. As I said, Jake, he's picking guys by one by one. He doesn't mind wait a little bit longer. And what I spoke with Jake one time, and he told me, Carlos, what I do is like this. I just watching the guys in front of me for a couple of 2-3 laps, and I see where the weak spot is, and that's when they try to make the move. So he just watch the guys for 2-3 laps, 4 laps or whatever, and see, oh, he's very weak in there, I'm stronger in there. So that's when you make the pass, and that's what happened. Jake makes a beautiful passes all the time. He's very good.
And for Enzo Benito, he continues to have issues at the start of the races. He's now down into the 8th position on the racetrack after qualifying in the 3rd spot. And it seems to be for Enzo Benito right now, Scott, he's got very good qualifying, 1-lap pace. But it does seem to be he's a little bit ragged in race trim, and of course he's got so much pressure on him moving to the Team Redline camp this year. You can almost, classify it as a Daniel Ricciardo move to Red Bull. He's got all the world watching to see how he fits into that Redline team. He's also not got the plethora of teammates he had last year. At De Kerkhoff on a part-time schedule, you have, Luke McLean and Ben Cornell also running part-time schedules. So really only 2 drivers running full-time in the Redline camp, and I think that might be hurting Benito's transition over to potentially the most successful team in the history of sim racing.
And of course, it's quite a big mantle, of course. You're coming into Redline, of course, with a driver such as Greg Ahutu, of course, and you wish to possibly try and learn off them. But of course, then if you're the only other full-time Red Line driver in that team, you have a lot of pressure and expectations to try and live up to that Gregor Huttu has built up since he's been at the team. And of course, that really misses. He gets another big wiggle on the exit of spoon curve. He just holds on to it. But of course, all this time, Martin Piatella really did close in down towards the hairpin and back towards 130. He's really lining him up for a pass now as he heads down towards the Casio triangle. Here he comes to the inside. The try and grab 8th place down into the Casio triangle up the inside, but somehow Benito chops him onto the front and says, "No, you don't, Martin, not this time." And back onto the pit straight they go. And that has lost Piatella a couple of car lengths, and somehow Benito stays in front. But he's certainly must be hearing some in the commentary box, because that was a much more brave move, and certainly starting to turn up the heat in terms of his pace at the moment in this race, as we now on lap 21. We're heading towards halfway distance, which is when I'm sure we'll start to see pit stops galore, especially for the one-stoppers at around Postgas, I suppose, lap 26-27 mark.
And I tell you what, that was really a moment out of Enzo Benito's rich GT heritage. For those of you who are new to iRacing, Enzo Benito, known as one of the best drivers ever to step into a GT car on the iRacing.com servers. And really, on that outside there, into the triangle, he knew exactly where to put his car. Don't forget, if you are a new member to iRacing, you can get yourself a plethora of special offers on membership if you head over to iRacing.com right now, and you can start racing for just $5 for your first month's membership. If you'd like to choose a longer subscription, you can get a 3-month, 1-year or even 2-year membership, all at 50% off, and you can join the world's most realistic racing simulator with over 45,000 members worldwide. The game that called PC Gamer said was the best racing game ever. Head over to iRacing.com right now for those special offers and start racing from as little as $5. Here comes Piatella once again, not quite close enough this time by into the triangle. Enzo Benito was able to hold him off, and in fact, Benito looking a lot stronger through that section of the racetrack than he has been previously. However, you have to say that Oli Picard is doing a good job in that third position, because what he's doing is he's holding off Martin Conquet, but not losing too much time right now to those two guys out front, Alexei Uciacola and Hugo Ruiz. We have talked so much this season about Glacier Racing, Carlos. You've got to say, this really is that moment in the season where Glacier Racing have finally, officially arrived in WCS.
Most definitely. I mean, we're very glad to do that. iRacing.com is it's a beautiful, beautiful simulation. I mean, it's one of the best, definitely for sure. And as you see the drivers, the level of the drivers, every one of the drivers here, they are champions. I mean, we have to realize that everybody that's racing here, they are champions. Even though they race in 20 position, 30, whatever, but they are champions. They are so fast. They are beautiful drivers. And you see here now, Hugo Luis getting very close to Uciacola, maybe for a position. And wow, let's see what happened here. Will.
Yeah, that was a lot closer than what we've seen previously.
Wow.
Hugo Luis all over the rear now of Alexei Uciacola to come back down into turn 1. Luis has never been this close as they run down into that first corner. This is where, of course, Uciacola took the lead in the first part of the race. Will Luis go down? No, he won't, but really now putting the pressure on to Alexei Uciacola. And I was about to say, Scott, that Uciacola has been so dominant at this track in the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing. He set the world on fire every time we came to this racetrack. He is holding off Hugo Luis, but potentially, knowing that he's got his first chance of a WCS victory in that Glacier Racing number 26 car, and he's got a one-time WCS champion in Hugo Luis behind him, I think potentially those nerves are now starting to show. Going to be a fascinating couple of laps, though, as these fuel loads come down even more.
Oh, most definitely. I think this is a great way that Hugo Luis is effectively saying, okay, you've had the lead for the first half of the race. Now let's see what you're really made of, Alexei. I'm going to put you under some serious pressure. Let's see just how you cope, and let's see if I can make you crack at any point. And he almost did down towards turn 1, but looks as though for the moment that the Finn is definitely keeping his cool head, as Finns tend to do, as they head up towards the 130 yard once again over the crossover. And Hugo Luis seems to be kind of status quo back once again, not as close as he was before, but down the back straight he is closing. And also just at the background I can see that Oli Picard has pulled a slight gap of about 0.6 of a second on Martin Kroenke in 4th position, which means that he's starting to turn the wick up, and both these Glacier TV cars are looking in an awesome position to get a double podium today, which will be an amazing result for the team, as they are now getting up there and proving their worth as a true iRacing WCS team, and they're taking a fight to the established names of 3ID Motorsport and Team Redline going forwards into the latter stage of this race.
And we are on lap number 24 of 53, so we are getting closer and closer to half race distance here in the 3rd round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. And you are right as well, Scott. Oli Piccardo has now been able to pull out a lead over Martin Kroenke. Like last time by, a 129.0 for Oli Piccardo, a 129.3 for Martin Kroenke. To give you an update on how these drivers are doing now compared to the start of this race, Oli Piccardo just set his fastest lap of the race, in fact the fastest lap of the race so far, on lap number 23. At the start of this race they were doing 1 minute 31.9. They are now over 2 seconds, almost 3 seconds a lap faster than this, but Piccardo is charging right now. 129.0 last time by. The guys ahead of him, 129.3 for Hugo Louise, 129.1 for Alexei Yusiakola. That Finnish driver, Oli Piccardo, he set the world on fire at Spa a month ago, Carlos, and here he comes again. Piccardo is potentially now a dark horse if he continues this race pace.
Oh, for sure. And one more thing too, what I'm thinking, and I just believe to think that everybody is on one-stop strategy, because if Hugo wasn't two-stop, if Hugo Luis wasn't two-stop or Yusiakola, they would have stopped already. So, I mean, we are already in lap 25, going to lap 26. I mean, I think everybody's on one stop, and that's what's happening. I mean, Hugo is just doesn't have the pace. That's what I think.
And by the way, Alex Simpson's brought his car onto pit road and is now classified as out of the race. So another retiree, which so far includes Timo Even and Simon Cattell, Alexi Aloma, Michelle Chesney, Lasse Brun Hansen, and David de Corps. However, we are getting word that it's potentially lap number 27, so just 3 laps time, that the Glacier Racing drivers of Oli Piccardo and Alexei Yusiakola will make their one and only visit onto pit road around the halfway point into this race. But the thing is as well for Luis, he has lost a little bit of time there to Yakola, and also for Yakola, potentially he's got some lap traffic just before he comes onto pit road, because he is catching Simon Cattell in an absolute hurry right now. Last time, the lap times for these drivers, 128.8 for Alexei Yusiakola, 128.9 for Hugo Louise, 128.8 for Oli Piccardo, 129.0 for Martin Kroenke, 129.1 for Gregor Hutu. I'm thinking, Scott, that it's not going to be a one-stop versus two-stop. Everyone's on a one-stop strategy. I think Hutu might try and do what Louise did at Spa, go 2-3 laps later, see whether he can use that to do the leapfrog. As here comes Simon Cattell onto pit road.
Absolutely. I think that this is a circuit where running longer does definitely benefit you. Of course, the longer circuits do tend to give you a bit of benefit on that one if you do decide to run longer, because the trouble is with shorter circuits, of course, I mean, it's beneficial to run a shorter stint and get the undercut, because obviously on a circuit where it's fairly difficult to pass, there's not too many passing opportunities. I think these guys will benefit from running a little bit longer to gain track position, running at full speed on tyres that are up to temperature, despite the fact that they are a little bit worn. Of course, on fresh tyres with a cold track, it's going to be very difficult, and it's going to take several laps to get them up to an optimum working temperature, which means they're going to have to find it very difficult, and it's almost going to be like a skating rink out there to get them up to a proper working temperature, as we said. But moving forwards into this midpoint of the race, we should be seeing a few pit stops right now. But I want to point out one thing which we may have missed in commentary, is that we do believe we have lost a big player in the race so far. That is Enzo Benito. Possibly some technical problems he's had during this race, but as far as I'm concerned, Enzo Benito is out of this race. He's no longer in this one at all.
Yeah, we'll come back to that in just a moment's time. Martin Kroenke last time by did a 128.6, the fastest lap of the race for him so far. Give you an update on Enzo Benito, find out exactly what happened to him. He lost the position actually just beforehand to the guys ahead of him, and then he just spun it down at the hairpin, and he is now classified as out of the race. Down into the triangle comes Alexei Yusiakola. Will he come into pit road this time by? The answer is going to be no. He stays out for one more lap, so we expect him to come into pit road next time by. He has, however, been able to pull out a lead over Hugo Louise the last couple of laps, and now it's up to almost 1 second on the racetrack. And the lap times between them: 128.4 for Yakola, 128.6 for Hugo Louise, 1:28.8 there for Oli Picard. A bad lap for him. That's allowed Martin Kroenke to close back up. It's another good lap for Martin Kroenke. To go back to the incident low, Carlos, with Enzo Benito, a silly mistake there for him. He allowed a car to go past on the outside into turn number 1. Then it just looked actually down into Spoon Curb. He lost that just on one of those white lines. Spun the car and he was out of the race.
Yeah, that was a lazy spin. I'm surprised that he parked the car, because he didn't hit anything. He could have kept going, but for some, unless if he had some other technical issues that we don't know about it, but he just did a lazy spin into it, and I thought he's just gonna keep going. And well, it was a lazy spin. He doesn't last a lot, but he just parked the car. I have no idea what happened.
Alexei Usiakola coming out of the Spoon Curve once again. We expect him to pit this time by. And yeah, I agree, for Benito, it's one of these things that, you know, there's now tarmac on the outside of the Spoon Curve. Back in history, there used to be just gravel there, and you really wouldn't be able to get out of it. So we'll find out what happens to Enzo Benito a little bit later on in this race. But here they come, down into the triangle. Once again, Alexei Usiakola, will he come to pit road this time by? The answer is going to be no, he'll stay out once again. Hugo Louis stays out once again. Oli Picard stays out. Martin Kroenke stays out. And Gregor Hutu, he is going to stay out as well. I tell you what, though, that gap that last time by, it closed by 1/10 of a second, because Louis is on the comeback, Carlos.
Yeah, Luis, I mean, he's just working with his tires right now, and he knows that he lost a little bit now with the Jussi Jacula. Then again, maybe Jussi Jacula could be a little lighter anyway, or who knows? I mean, it's maybe could be a lap. He's going to be a lap more than Hugo Louis into the first pit stop, you know, or the only one pit stop that we see here.
And by the way, Jeremy Bootsleep, he's having another great race. He's able to get himself just past Yornis Marder there, down into turn number 1, all the way down to the wall, into the inside, as they came down into turn number 1, and that moves Jeremy Bootsleep up into P11 in this race. After qualifying P16, another good race for that Radical Steel Series driver of Jeremy Bootsleep. He now leads that team's charge after the retirement from this series of both Blake Talon and also Pablo Paycheck Lopez at the end of the last season. Down the back straightaway they come, and I tell you what, Hugo Louis has still fallen back a little bit there compared to Alexei Usiakola. Bakala has fallen off a lot there the last lap or so. We'll see if anything's happened to him as they come through the triangle once again to complete lap number 28. The guys stay out once again. We are now past the halfway distance of this race. Will anyone come into pit road? Not the top 3, top 4 or top 5 drivers. So, looks as though they are going a little bit longer, Scott. But out front, Luis is closing up to the rear of Yakoda. I think he had a couple of dodgy laps. I think, really, Luis might have tried to save himself just a click of fuel, try and go 1 lap longer than the competition ahead of him.
Absolutely. Look at his best lap, 1:28.1. He was 3/10 quicker on that previous lap, which means that he really is starting to turn up the dial and possibly be thinking about trying to put in a few quick laps just to dump out the rest of that fuel in order to get himself as close to Alexei Usiakola as he possibly can before he makes his one and only pit stop in this race. And of course, as what we said, the cooler conditions are helping these guys to manage the tyres a little bit better and to run a little bit further than half distance, which means that, of course, it gives them an advantage to possibly gain a bit more track position, obviously on the tyres they're up to temperature, rather than tyres which are going to be stone cold and they're going to take several laps to get into a proper working range before they start to take effect. One quick look back at the battle for third place, it's still stationary at about 0.6 of a second. Oli Picard doing very well at the last lap time, running at 1:1.8 for Picard at 1:28.6 for Kroenke. So he's actually starting to close in. But as they now come towards the 130-yard corner, they've already come towards lap traffic for the leaders, and he's got around, I think, that is possibly Alexei Eloma. Yes, it is. No, it's not. It's Timo Ivanen. He's got around, and do leaders pit at the moment. Yakola stays out, so does Hugo Louis. As for Picard and Kroenke, they are both staying out as well. What about Gregor Hutu? He's going to stay out as well. So now the top 5 once again staying out. The cooler temperatures definitely benefits the front runners at this early point, at this midpoint of the race.
Yep, and we've got ourselves 24 laps left to go of the 53 that was scheduled for this, the third round of the championship. Give you an update on some of the other drivers. Stephen Michael's been able to move himself up into the 9th position. However, he's being hounded right now by Jeremy Bootsleep. Last time by, a 1:28.8 there for Jeremy Bootsleep, a 1:28.8 also for Stephen Michaels. These two running very close on the racetrack. And Carlos, these two drivers, they are battling really for top 10 positions every single race, but Boostloop is so much faster than Michael's in that first sector of the racetrack. This is not something we normally see from drivers closing up through the S's and up the Dunlop curve.
No, definitely not. There's a lot of people making pit stops right now. Yeah, but well, it's hard to say because the Radical drivers, they are pretty set on their goals, right? So they want to finish ahead of the other teams, right? And it's one of those things. It's different racetrack. It's different approach to the race. Some people just want to keep collecting points, and in the end, if you keep on the top 25, that's what only matters for that case, you know.
So, lap number 30 is in the books, and again, your top 3 drivers stay out on the racetrack, but that battle between Boostloop and Michaels continues. Let's see whether Boostloop can get a run down into the 130. It does look like he's actually stalling out there in that 10th position. He's going to look to the outside, not quite close enough, and that's one of those things that these drivers, they have to set their gears before the start of the race. Again, depending on where they think they're going to run in traffic, and here comes Boostloop onto pit road, so he's the first of the top 10 to blink. He is going to come down, and let's see whether he's going to take tyres here, Scott, because if he does, this will be interesting to see whether any of the other drivers will follow that precedent, and it'll be interesting to see what the lap time difference is if he does or doesn't take tyres.
Of course, like I said, obviously with the tyres, of course, we're in that optimum temperature already. Of course, you lose a little bit of temperature whilst he's stationary. Well, let's see if he does go. Jacks have gone out, so he has decided to take tyres on this occasion, waiting for the rest of the fuel to go in. Of course, he will be away in just a few moments' time. As the rest of the fuel comes through, away he goes. Let's see exactly who he's going to try and who and where he's going to filter in with. A couple of cars coming down pit straight right now. I think that is possible. If I look at it on the screen, if I double check it, is that going to be? It might be Kazuki Umashima. Yes, it is. So it looks like he's come back out in 20th position, just ahead of Kazuki Imashima. So he is really starting to push forward, and he will try and get through the traffic. He's got plenty of clean air in front of him, so that's definitely going to be a benefit. So of course, he's going to be the guinea pig on cold tyres. We'll see how this is going to work. But of course, the leaders now to the chicane. Will they decide to come to pit road?
Hugo Luis.
Yeah, Hugo Luis has come onto pit road a lap earlier than Alexei Yusiakoya, and I was saying a little bit a moment ago that I think that Luis was trying to save some fuel. I've got a feeling here that Luis was trying to really make a fuel number because he saw him fall back to almost a second behind Yakola about 6-7 laps ago. I think he just didn't have enough in the tank to be able to do so. Hugo Luis is one of the first drivers onto pit road. Now he's got an issue actually here, that pit exit can be very difficult, and that's why you see him running actually all the way through the pit boxes and then angling his car to the left. That way he can maximise his straight line speed coming out. Here comes Luis out of pit road. Let's see where he falls onto the racetrack, as Andre Borch is also onto pit road as well. And it looks as though that Hugo Luis is going to come out around Christian Loren. But the important thing is he's out really in the majority of clean air. He's got Mogar Filo about 2 seconds ahead of him. That won't be an issue. But Hugo Luis is the first of these drivers to pit, and he picks from the second position. And we will see now just how much further Alexei Yusiakola and Oli Piccardo will go. And it did look as though he came onto pit road very, very late there. And we're going to have to wonder now how much longer it's going to be until Alexei Yusiakola makes his own trip onto pit road from the race lead. Critical moment of the race really is right now in the third round of the championship. Here they come into the triangle one more time. Alexei Yusiakola, will he dart onto pit road? Will he dart right? The answer is going to be no. He stays out for another lap. Oli Piccardo, will he come into pit road? The answer is no. Again, if Gregor Hutu comes in the next couple of laps, it'll be race over. Kroenke's onto pit road. The Glacier boys are going longer than Free ID drivers, Scott. We never thought this was going to happen.
This is a sensational turn of events. 3ID Motorsport are going to have to start scratching their heads here. They're going to have to wonder if they've made the right call, and if possibly their chance of getting a victory, or even possibly preventing a Glacier Racing 1-2, have possibly just gone out the window. Because of course Luis is going to have to get through all that traffic in front of him, whilst the other cars are going to be trying to make their pit stops. But right now, Yusiakola and Pacala are in the plum seats, first and second. The Glacier Racing boys must be rubbing their hands back in the pits, thinking we've got possibly an absolute top draw result here if we can just keep our cool and hope this strategy works for us. They're working on lap 33, they've got 20 laps to go. I'm pretty sure that Nicola and Piccardo will go through, but maybe I think this is possibly, again, we talk about the temperatures, I wonder if possibly Nicola and Piccardo have set their strategies accordingly. So of course they're on heavier fuel there, but of course they know the course with the cooler temperatures, they'll be able to run it for. They ought to run it a
has
bit
some
longer.
issues. Martin Patila has some issues on pit road. He's been on pit road for quite a while, actually. As Yudan Rumi is also right now scored on pit road. So a number of drivers are making their one and only stop in this race. We are, of course, keeping an eye out on the race leader, Alexei Yusiakoda. But we also have to consider Gregor Houghton, who's running in that third position now at the moment. As here comes Yukoda onto pit road from the race lead. Will Oli Picard follow him onto pit road? The answer to that question is going to be no. Oli Picard goes a lap longer than Alexei Yusiakoda. And let's see whether Houghton will come into pit road. The answer is no to that one as well. So Alexei Yusiakoda blinked a lap before Oli Picard there. That potentially could allow Picard to really come back into this race. But it's going to be an absolutely faultless pit stop now for Alexei Yusiakoda in that number 26 Glacier Racing car. To give you an update where Hugo Louise is right now, he's only just coming down into the triangle. He comes out of the triangle, and Alexei Yusiakoda is out and away already. He will be slower on that run down into turn number 1, but Hugo Louise is almost half a straightaway back, Carlos. This is huge for Alexei Yusiakoda.
You know what I thought? Yeah, I was watching that before Hugo Luis came in. Hugo Luis saw that Jack Yakola, it was with lap traffic in front of him. I think say, okay, I'm gonna pull in a lap earlier because he's got traffic. Maybe if I do a hot lap after that, I'll be coming ahead or very close to it. But I think he lost too much. I mean, he lost too much, Hugo Luis now. I don't know if his pit entrance was very slow or his coming out of the pits was slow, but he lost way too much, so he's totally lost contact with the Yakola.
By the way, Philo and Patila and Kursuki Omishima were also scored on pit road that last time by. Let's keep an eye on Oli Picard. Can he go an extra lap? No, he doesn't. He comes onto pit road this time by. So Oli Picard is in. Let's see what happens to number 1 car. Gregor Houghton goes another lap. This race continues to evolve here in the third round of the championship as we work ourselves now onto lap number 36. Oli Picard is on pit road. Pit road speed here is 37 miles an hour. Picard can't go as long as Gregor Houghton. We could be thinking about Houghton coming back into this race. We'll bring you an update on that one in a moment's time, because Picard, 4 fresh tyres for him. He will top up with race fuel as well, as Hugo Abe is also on pit road, as is Timo Evenham, just coming onto pit road right now. But where is Picard in relation to Alexei Yusiakoda? The answer is going to be they're going to be mighty, mighty close. Picard and Yakoda goes around the outside there of Picard, and Yakoda able to keep the lead, but only just there from Oli Picard. And you've got to say right now, Scott, Houghton will have to go at least another lap if you want to get back into this race.
Yeah, this is all eyes on Gregor Houghton, the reigning champion. We said he's going to have to be massively under pressure to keep himself in the championship hunt. And of course now it all depends on what he does now in these next couple of laps. Does he pit this time around? Can he go an extra couple of laps? Can he really put himself into contention for this victory? We've hardly talked about him all race because he really just hasn't been in contention and on the same pace as the likes of Oli Picard, Yusiakoda and Hugo Louis and Martin Cronkite. He's been sat there in 5th position, running his own race in no man's land, but he's coming down towards the Casio Triangle for the 35th time out of 53. Is he going to be able to pull right into pit road? The answer to that question, he is staying right, he's pitting. This is crucial, I think, and that means, of course, that it means Yusiakoda and Picard are going to hopefully possibly retain first and second. Have to wait and see exactly how slick Redline are going to be in that pit stop. Here he comes towards his pit box. This is crucial.
Indeed it is. We've got all the other drivers now on pit road. Paolo Muir and Timo Evenham are on pit road. Everyone else has made their pit stop. We're going to keep an eye out on Gregor Houghton, 37 miles an hour as he comes down into his pit box. He actually gets a better launch out of pit road compared to some of the other drivers. He's going to get 4 fresh tyres. He'll have to take a little bit less fuel compared to the leaders. But here comes Yakoda. Where will he be in relation to Gregor Houghton? Houghton comes down the pit road. Alexei Yusiakoda is streaming past. It's going to be close. It's going to be Alexei Yusiakoda, Oli Picard, Gregor Houghton. 3 finished drivers. No, it won't be because Hugo Louise just goes past Gregor Houghton there. 2 finished drivers, a Brazilian driver, then Gregor Houghton, only in the 4th position. What a race we've had so far. But Yakoda and Picard need a Glacier Racing 1-2 right now, Carlos. Hugo Louise, after qualifying in the 1st position, now only runs in P3.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. Wow, my God. How better this race can become. I mean, this is so fantastic, and Hugo Louis just made a little mistake in there. Oh my God, this is so cool. This is so fantastic. Now we have Hugo Louis again with Gregor Houghton right on his tail.
And I tell you what, that you've got battles all the way through the top 4 right now. It really has shrunk down. We'll give you full confirmation as they come past the start finish line once again. We'll also run through your full top 10, but there's battles that will go on in the last less than 20 laps of this race. There are 18 laps remaining at the moment, but Alexi Yusiakola leads right now from Oli Picala. Hugo Luis is in the 3rd place. Gregor Hutu is in the 4th position. We'll give you a full rundown of the top 10 in just a moment's time. But out of those top 4 drivers, it's actually Gregor Hutu's on the back foot. He's not got the gap that Hugo Luis has to Oli Picala right now. And Alexi Yakola even is driving off into the sunset. Yakola 1 second ahead of Oli Picala. Picala is about 6 tenths of a second ahead of Hugo Luis. And then Gregor Hutu is a further 1 second back. The guys in the catbird seat are Yakola, potentially Hugo Luis, but Gregor Hutu, I don't think he can come back for this, Scott.
No, I think he's too far back. I think he's possibly staying out too long. It cost him definitely track position, but it's caused a sensational situation here where effectively we all thought that 3ID and Team Redline were the 2 main teams and that only one of those 2 could win a race, but certainly the form book has been certainly just torn up to pieces here because Glacier Racing have come from literally, in many ways, almost nowhere, and by securing Yusiakola and Oli Picala, 2 very formidable talents from the Pro Road Racing Series, they are absolutely storming at the front of the field at the moment. We're not pulling the gap at the moment, but I think Picala is working more of a buffer for Yakola because Yakola is starting to pull that gap across the stripe. It was practically 1 second between himself and Picala, so looks like Ollie is kind of playing the rear gunner to Yakola at the moment. He seems to have resided because he realises that his pace compared to Alexis is not as quick, even though he is running in that 2nd position. But Gregor Hutu is in the kind of the worst position here. He's thinking, what have I got to do to possibly try and get on the pace? I'm sure he'll press as hard as he can, or as his car will allow. Or I'm sure the red line must be sat in the garage thinking, scratching their heads thinking, where did this strategy all go wrong?
And I tell you what, one of the big movers there was Jake Sturgis as well through pit stops. And to run through the top 10 then, it's Yakola from Picala, from Hutu from Sturgis, from Borcha, and then Cronke, Abe, Tamara and Michaels rounds out your top 10. Where did Abe come from, Carlos? All of a sudden he's running now in the 8th position on the racetrack after qualifying this race in the 14th position.
Well, he kept his nose clean, and he just, as I said, he was not worrying about passing anybody. He just went on with his strategy, and the strategy really works well for him. Now he's in the top 10. 8th position is very, very good for the home driver. And so going back here to Hugo and Oli Picala, I mean, Hugo, he's kind of gaining a little bit on Oli Picala. I think I can see a battle pretty soon.
Yeah, the 4th round of the championship will take place in 2 weeks' time. That will be here live and exclusive on RaceSpotTV, as on April 12, the drivers head over to Road America, perhaps the greatest test of road racing in the entirety of North America. Our first visit to that track, and it's going to be an amazing track as well. Our first visit to North America, to the home of road racing in North America, that is Road America. Meanwhile, let's consider Hugo Luis here, because he's got a rookie to the series ahead of him in Oli Picala. Now, we've seen so much good speed by Oli in this season so far, and I think our first race of the season really did show him to be a true WCS contender. However, when you've got Hugo Luis behind you, mistakes can happen. We saw a couple of mistakes from Yakola. Can Picala handle the pressure, Scott?
Well, it is all about that, of course. We've seen many rookies, of course, obviously. They're relatively inexperienced. They haven't run too many iRacing WCS races. And like I said, in some cases, the Pro Road Racing Series is a very different animal to the iRacing WCS, because it can feel, some drivers, if they've done well in the Pro Road Racing Series, got themselves decent results, but then jump into the iRacing WCS, and they feel as if they've just stepped into the deep end, and they just get absolutely swamped. Not so with Oli Picala. He's running a fantastic race so far here in 2nd place. He really is putting himself into the shop window as a championship contender, as we were talking about possibly even before the broadcast, and also in the pre-race show as well. He really has been a fantastic driver to watch so far this season, and I'm sure he'll continue to excite us across the remaining 13 rounds we've got in the championship this season.
To run through drivers classified out of the race, David Corp classified in the 35th position, Lasse Johansson out, Michelle Scherzini out of the race, Alexi Oloma out, Enzo Benito out after a spin down at the spoon curve. Simon Cattell is running but scored 3 laps down. Timo Evenen out of the race. Alex Simpson scored 2 laps down. Jonas Zakurian, the only driver, scored 1 lap down in the 27th position. Still 26 guys scored on the lead lap. Last one of them, well, that is Paulo Mulia in the 26th position in that on-free racing machine. Now, Yakola is catching some lap traffic. That won't be too much of an issue. There are blue flag rules in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. The battle we've got to keep our eye out on is arguably between Picard and Luis. But like last time by, Gregor Hutu was able to gain a tiny bit. I am talking just a tiny bit between those two drivers over the last couple of laps, Carlos. Hutu's still there in the mix. You can never discount the three-time WTS champion, but you do have to say he really is on the back foot now. With 14 laps to go in this race, he's going to take a lot of work to get up into second position.
Oh no, he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna be gaining anything right here. I mean, the way it stands right now, because Hutu has to gain his game a lot in order to pass Hugo Luis, because you can always get close to Hugo Luis, but to pass, it's always that question. I mean, you can always get close to the driver in front of you, but to pass, it's very hard. Especially now when you get Hugo Luis hungry. He knows he wants to, at least if he cannot win the race, he wants to finish top 2, top 3, the worst top 3, to get some points ahead of Hutu, because last Hutu's in 7th in the championship, so this is something that Hutu probably never experienced before. You know, like you say, oh my God, I'm in 7th championship, I should have been 1st or 2nd, right? So.
And back in the pack, in the battle for the 10th position, Jeremy Boozlip continues his battle with Stephen Michaels, now in pit stop. Oh no! Boozlip spins it! Michaels collects him, Mogarfilo goes round the outside of him, almost a 3-car pile-up involving two of the Radical drivers. Mogarfilo goes past both of them, Martin Patila goes past Michaels and Boozlip there. A simple spin for Jeremy Boozlip down at the hairpin. He didn't get tagged by the look of it. He was spinning it already, and then a little bit of contact with Michaels. He had to slow to a right stop there, and then Mogarfilo thankfully able to avoid it, go around the outside of all of them. I'm just having a look to see how much damage there is to the front wing of Stephen Michaels' car. Doesn't seem to be much there, but how close was that to being a 4-car pile-up with those 4 drivers, Scott?
It was absolutely crucial. But looking now, seeing us now, must be trying to get out the outside of Mogarfilo. He's pushed him wide, and there goes actually up the inside Jeremy Boozlip. So a great move, but Mogarfilo will feel very much aggrieved on that one as Stephen Michaels heads to pit road. He feels his car can't continue in the condition it's in. So he's coming in to try and get that fixed as quickly as he can. But an awesome pass from Martin Piatella, and he had him lined up because coming into Spoon Curve, whilst you mentioned the incident there, he did actually push to force Mogarfilo to outbrake himself and go wide. He did try to go up the inside into the first part of Spoon Curve. Mogar ran wide, and then on the exit, Martin had a super little toe all the way up towards 130R, tried it around the outside, and just a piece of contact as Mogar tried to turn back into track position, just pushed him wide, and Jeremy Boozlip said thank you very much, as back up now into the 11th position with Mogar, his teammate, now trying to get back up and recover from that rather I'm looking for the word, but rather serious chain of events.
And Stephen Michaels, that's going to be hugely disappointing for him after what is a good run in that Twister Racing machine. Now, Twister Racing's had a great couple of years in the iRacing WCS, but they have been plagued by some bad results, and this is the 2nd in a row for Stephen Michaels, who's looking for a much better start to the season than what we've just seen in this race. However, the gap between Yakola and Picard, that is 1.4 seconds on the racetrack. Picard to Luis is 3/10 of a second, and they have now dropped Gregor Hutu once again, so perhaps Hutu is thinking that there's no way he's going to be able to catch those 2 drivers ahead unless they start fighting, and is just backing out of it just a tiny bit. But for Free ID, they have still got a little bit of a consolation prize. Luis in 3rd, Martin Kroenke in 6th, Andre Borchit in the 7th position, Yorni Tamana in 9th, and Marty Pilatella rounds out the top 10. And Carlos, even if they don't win the race here today, you can still say that Free ID have strength in numbers, 4 guys in the top 10.
For sure. For Yusuke Jackler, it's gonna be amazing when if he wins the race. He's gonna commemorate a lot, because it's huge. To win a race on a WCS, it's the pinnacle of the sport. It's the best. I mean, there's nothing else better than that. For Holly Packler, he's there in 2nd place. I always say that it's much easier to be in 2nd than to be in 1st, because when you're in 1st, you have a lot of responsibility to keep the car on the ground, to keep going fast laps and keep your place. If you're in 2nd, you're always waiting for the guy on the front to make a little mistake, and you can jump on it. So it's much easier to run in 2nd than 1st. So I hope that Jackla will have enough experience to finish the race on ahead and win a WCS race. And if you win 1, you can always win 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth.
So then, just a little under 12 laps to go in this race, so 11 laps to go in this race as we wind it down at Suzuka. Don't forget, immediately before each of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series races, RaceSpotTV presents WCS Spotlight. It starts at 1 PM GMT when we look back at all the events in the previous round of the season, as well as driver interviews, team interviews, and a look forward to the race ahead. That is 1 PM GMT, immediately before RaceSpotTV's coverage of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. And then, in 2 weeks' time, we head over to Road America. That will be on April 12, 2014. Start time for that will be 2 PM GMT. Now, for Hugo Louis, Scott, it doesn't look as though he's got the raw speed to get past Ollie Picala. I've been having a look at their straight line speeds, considering the fact that Louis is in the draft of Ollie Picala. He's no faster in a straight line. He's not closing up the same way that Yakola was closing up to the rear of other drivers earlier in this race, and the same way that we see, you know, Picala getting a good straight line speed, a good toe out of that final corner. Just not happening really for Hugo Louis, and that, I think, has been his issue all race long. That 7th gear perhaps just a tiny bit too short because he's stalling out down into turn 1.
Absolutely, of course. We saw Hugo Louis trying to close in at about the first third of the race. Wasn't able to really get himself close enough to make a pass down into turn 1 on UC Yakola, and that's the problem that he's had all race long so far. So when Hugo Louis does get himself into a proper draft, when he gets himself close enough, he only really capitalises on the fact that either he's had a better lap in some areas or a driver in front has made a mistake. And of course, but on raw speed, it does seem as though that having that slightly shorter 7th gear is benefiting the cars around him, especially the 2 Glacier Racing cars of Yakola and Picala, who run of course directly in front of him. So definitely something I think that possibly for the next visit later on in the year, obviously near the end of the season, something that's good. It's going to be something that Hugo is going to have to think about when we set up to give him any chance of winning the second time we make our visit to Suzuka later on at the end of the season. But for now, of course, Hugo, I think he's kind of pushing on as best he can, trying to get as much straight line speed as he can from that Tiradio Motorsport car, and just really trying to set himself up to possibly hold on to that third place, provided that Hutu doesn't spring a surprise in the last 11 laps remaining in this third round of the championship.
Yeah, we are now down to closing stages of this, the third round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. For those of you who are just joining us, this is a review of the race so far. It started off with Hugo Louis on pole position, which was a thrilling battle, being able to get that pole by just 2/100ths of a second from Alexei Yakola. However, down into turn number 1, Yakola was able to steal the race lead, and since then, Hugo Louis has never been able to find a way past. Pit stops was a crazy scenario as Yakola came in way before Ollie Picala was able to close that gap up to just 1 second on the racetrack, and Hugo Louis has not been able to get past at all those 2 Glacier Racing drivers. Gregor Hutu's had a difficult day, qualifying in the 4th position, losing places early on, however was able to gain it back up with some interesting strategy that's going to go longer than any other driver in the field. Right now he runs in the 4th position. Our biggest mover through pit stops, however, was Jake Sturgis, who had a bad start to the race, fell almost at the end of the top 10, is now running in the 5th position. And with now just 9 laps to go in this race, Alexei Yakola leads by half a second over Ollie Picala, with Hugo Louis just a further 4 attempts back. 3 drivers separated by just 1 second on the racetrack with less than 10 laps to go. It's going to be a grandstand finish once again, Carlos.
Well, most definitely. Now, at this point, I think that Hugo Louis, because he's leading the championship, he's worrying about now to just keep in 3rd place and keep clean. And he knows that he's got Gregor Hutu on breathing on his rear, so, and it's even closer now. So, what I think is, if Hugo Louis can get to finish in 3rd place, he keeps Hutu behind him for 4th place, so he's gonna get way more points than Hutu. And for the 2 guys in the front, they want to win this race and they want to finish in 2nd. So it's going to be very tough, even if Hugo Louis now at this point with 9 laps to go, a little bit less than that. It's going to be very hard to make, say, I'm going to let you pass, or no. They're not going to make it easier. It's never easy to be passing here anyway. But right now at this point, I think Hugo should stay in 3rd place and should keep that place and get points for the championship.
And tell you what, Scott, I'm just having a look through the fastest laps of the race so far. Now, the top 2, Hugo Louis, Gregor Hutu, 3rd place, is that number 43 car, Kazuki Omishima, who somehow was able to do the fastest lap, just 1/10 of a second back what Hugo always has been able to do. Now, Omishima is running down to the 20th position. He's made 2 pit stops here today, but that has got to be inspiring for the hometown crowd, because Omishima showed some good raw speed, and again, in that running racing car, he's just had a good race, just marred by a couple of very small issues.
Yeah, of course, he had that incident on the first lap, which put him right down to the back of the field. But to be fair, getting back to 20th on the pace that he's been showing definitely is not only encouraging for his race as a whole, but also going forwards into the rest of the season. I mean, it does show that, of course, up there with Yuha Abe, he is definitely one of the stronger Japanese drivers. Of course, Yuno Narumi had a rather silent race as well. He's done 20 seconds and 1 minute and 18 seconds back off the still on the lead lap. But Umeshima definitely having the best run on the best of the rest when it comes in terms of the hometown favourites from Japan. But of course, we have to, of course, credit that, I guess, the biggest cheers to be reserved for Yuha Abe when he comes across the line at the end of the race in 8th spot to get himself a top 10 finish for the Ronin Racing team. But at the front, of course, Yuka is having a great run so far with 0.8 seconds ahead of Oli Picala, with Hugo Luis a further half a second back. So an intriguing battle for second place, but obviously we'll have to see whether or not Umeshima has any potential to get up near into a top 10 placing. And also, it's also a case of what might have been if he hadn't had that mistake. Where would he have been in the position? Could he have been in the top 10 at this point in the race if he hadn't had that issue of the first couple of corners, which got him into pit road at the end of lap 1?
And that's one of those things with the new teams as well. Running Racing really is their first season running as a cohesive unit. Of course, Yudo Narumi, he had his second early race incident in the first 3 rounds of the championship. We remember back at Spa, he went off down to Stavro the second lap of the race. He had a moment down into turn 1 early on here as well. But we know there's good speed by that number 14 driver of Yudo Narumi. Going to turn our attention to the battle, the rear of the top 10 between Jeremy Bootloop and also Marty Piatella. They are continuing to battle on the racetrack, and Bootloop is really closing up now to the rear of Marty Piatella in that battle for the 10th position. And Yoni Tamada ahead of them. They all kind of trading lap times right now, Carlos. And for Bootloop, he lost out quite heavily with that incident about 10 laps ago. Still trying to get himself into the top 10, however.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's Marty Tamala is one of those guys that they keep plugging, they keep going, even to they battle until the last lap, until the last corner. So those guys, they never give up. So I mean, all the guys that drives on the WCS, they are like that. They race very, very hard at every time. Doesn't matter what position you're racing very hard.
And with just 5.5 laps to go left in this race, Hutu has closed up now to the rear of Hugo Luis. And in fact, that entire pack has come together because Picard has slowed down a little bit. Yakoda's been able to pull out a lead once again. And it does seem to be that potentially Hutu is now in the opportunist window to make a pass on Hugo Luis. I'm going to keep an eye out on their top speeds as they come down the back straightaway through the 130 yard down into the triangle, because this will be the interesting telltale story whether or not Hutu has got that longer gear. And he doesn't, Scott. He's about 2 miles an hour slower. There's a spinner actually down. I believe that was towards the triangle there, just ahead of the leaders. But Hutu hasn't got the straight line speed of Hugo Luis. Hugo Luis hasn't got the straight line speed of Oli Picard. They're really fighting here against all the elements, and it does seem to be that they're getting frustrated with each other, that they've each got good parts of their racetrack, but those parts of the racetrack they can't pass.
It's like opposing force to the magnet. The harder these two try to push to try and close the gap on the cars in front, the harder it is to try and do it, because effectively they're kind of counterbalancing any kind of advantage that they might have in straight line speed. So effectively Hugo Luis and Gregor Hutu are kind of just racing, but they're going nowhere at the same time. It's almost like they're standing still in terms of their positions and not really making any ground on the cars in front, but just simply the car in front is pushing hard himself to try and close on the car that's in front of them. So it's a rather complicated situation, but it's one that I think that is frustrating with Hugo and Gregor. And in some ways, I think they're kind of getting resigned to the fact that unless it happens, you've got lots of lap travelling in front as they try to get around him. Possibly, I think possibly might be Tiba Evening being lapped once again.
Alex Simpson was there.
Sorry, Alex Simpson being lapped on that one. So thank you for that one, Will. But yeah, it's intriguing to see that Gregor and Hugo just not having enough straight line speed. Of course, it will certainly teach them for future races not to have too much of a long 7th gear, otherwise it can really hurt them, especially on a circuit if they're not getting too much into the dirty air of other cars to take advantage of the slipstream. But I think at the moment they're going to have to try and keep pushing on for the last few laps. Just hope that possibly either Alexi or Ollie make a mistake in front to try and take advantage of, because if they don't, it doesn't. So there you go.
So they'll come past the start-finish line to complete lap number 49 of 53 here at the Suzuka International Racing Course. So they're now down into the last 15 miles of this, the third round of the championship. Yakola still leads from Picard. Louise is still in the third position. Gregor Hutu is still in the fourth spot. And then Jake Sturgis rounds out your top five. Louise has fallen back in that last lap to Ollie Picard as he now begins to defend from that number one Team Redline car of Gregor Hutu. You have to say, though, outside of the top five, Cronke is still close to the rear of Jake Sturgis, and I think Cronke in these last couple of lap stops could make an upset on Jake Sturgis because his last lap was faster than Sturgis, and we know how quick Cronke can be at this stage of a fuel run.
Absolutely, he really is putting on the pressure at the moment, and Jake Sturgis, of course, is trying to hold on to a top five finish and salvage something for iNext Racing, of course, as they head into the Degner curves for the 50th time out of 53. But Cronke is turning up the look, a little tail slide on the exit of the second part of the Degner as they head up now towards the hairpin. And Cronke just so good under the brakes. See what kind of traction he gets off the hairpin. See, it's fairly equal. In fact, Sturgis has pulled a small gap. So look at Sturgis has advantage in traction off the corners, but in terms of actually the speed through the high-speed stuff, it seems as though that it is Cronke has that advantage, and it's that raw pace that we talked about all race long so far that's really seeing him to gain advantage. Let's see what kind of advantage he might have as a whole. I see there that Sturgis immediately going to the inside of the track to get the shortest possible run off the spoon curve and the straightest line towards 130R, and not quite close the gap so far. So it looks as though that Cronke is still going to continue to push. He will close under braking into the Casio triangle, but it's all action stations at the front, of course. I mean, you've got still the battle raging between the first, second, third and fourth, and the battle for fifth. So this race is far from over, and we've only got 3 laps, including the one we're on, left in this third round of the championship here at Suzuka. So the laps are winding down. It is go time for all of these drivers, and I think Martin Cronke last time did a 128.5, 2 tenths of a second slower. However, Sturgis has some lap traffic ahead of him. That's Alex Simpson. That's really going to hold him up a little bit there. And Alex Simpson has had a damaged race car for quite a while now, and that's the second close moment he has had as he's being put down a lap from some of these drivers. Now, of course, there are regulations in the iRacing.com first sporting code that you have to be able to run a reasonable pace and not run a car that is too far off pace. Now, Simpson's lap times have been consistent. It just seems to be that it's very difficult for him to run offline in this race as it stands. Now, between Hutu and Louise, I think for Hutu, this is potentially his best opportunity. He's got a good run out of spoon curve this time by, but again, it does look as though he's not really gaining much. That shorter 7th gear just isn't working for him. And again, top speed 191 miles an hour, and you see ahead of him, Louise is just able to do so much faster, Carlos. And I think really that has been the downfall of both Prix ID and Team Redline here today. They've just not been able to really close up to the cars ahead of them to make that pass happen.
It's so hard to pass at this point. I mean, it's very hard to pass. It's almost impossible right now because Hugo or anybody that's really battling for position, especially in the front, it's not going to be easy to pass. So nobody's going to pass anybody right now unless if you dive bomb, but they're not going to do that. So, and I was wondering again, what happened to Mogarfilho? He was in 10th position, then he had the battle with the problems with the guys, and he was in 12th place. Now he's fighting himself in 17th position, Mogarfilho. Now he lost a few positions there on this last few laps, you know?
Well, yeah, for Mogarfilho, of course, he's had the issue that he's had himself some damaged front wing, and there's a huge pack of cars ahead of him. Ilga Hapada, Fulvio Barazzini, and Michel Mancusi. They're going to take it right down to the wire. However, there's a lap and a half to go now for Alexia Loma. We'll stay just for the moment with that battle for 14-15 because Barazzini is close to the rear, and Michel Mancusi not quite close enough. He's going to try down to the inside, not going to make it happen. Ilga Hapada a little bit slow there, and Barazzini really had to get off the gas there to not hit Michel Mancusi in what was the battle for the 14th position on the racetrack. However, Alexei Yusiakola comes down into the triangle. He has got lap trackers ahead of him, but as he does so, he'll come out on the final corner. This time by the last lap of the race commences. Alexei Yusiakola looking to try and make it a Glacier Racing 1-2 here at Suzuka. He will have to get himself through this lap traffic close. He works himself out of turn number 2. Here he comes through the S's for the final time. This is a difficult part of the racetrack because of the wind. It's 5 miles an hour to the east, and it really causes a huge crosswind as they come through this section. It's a bit like Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone when you have some tricky wind conditions there. Up the hill he comes, through the Dunlop curve for the final time. That lap traffic of Miguel Martin, he isn't closing up to it too quickly. Hopefully, that will just move out of the way as he comes out of the hairpin. But here comes Sikoda now, underneath the bridge, down into the hairpin for the final time. Half a lap to go for him. Behind him, Oli Picard is right on the rear, as let's see how it's going to be difficult, I think, for Sikoda to get past this lap traffic. He's really struggling a little bit right now. This could be a deciding moment of the race if he can't get him on the exit of the spoon curve, because the last thing you want is try and go on the inside of the driver down into, and there you see the lap traffic moving out of the way. He does not want to affect the last lap of this race, but Ricardo is just about 4 car lengths back, and Louise is a further 4 car lengths back, and Hutu a further 4 car lengths back. But here comes Alexei Yusiakola through the 130R for the final time, into the triangle for the final time. Ricardo all over the rear of him. He's not going to be close enough, however. And as they come out to the final corner, it's the Glacier Racing 1-2. Alexei Yusiakola scores his first victory in the WCS. Oli Picard second, Hugo Luis third, Gregor Houghton fourth position. Those 4 drivers separated, Scott, by just 1.4 seconds on the racetrack after 53 laps of racing.
What an awesome race and what an awesome result. That has to be probably one of the most popular results in iRacing WCS history. That is an excellent result with Glacier Racing. Alexei must be going absolutely overjoyed in that cockpit, and also so for Oli Picard, and they both deserve it. They have driven their hearts out today at Suzuka, and they really have justified the pace of both themselves and the cars that they have underneath them, and they really have shown that it's not just 3ID Motorsport versus Team Redline. There is a third team in contention for victories, and their name is Glacier Racing. Massive congratulations to Alexei for the win and for Oli for the podium. Very much well deserved. I'm pretty sure the whole iRacing WCS community and the whole iRacing community as a whole will echo that sentiment. Absolutely awesome job by all of them, all 4 in the top 4. Hugo and Gregor were a little bit unlucky. Didn't have exactly the same pace. Their choices with gearing seemed to hinder them a little bit, but still, awesome job by all 4 to keep it clean and to keep it on the racetrack. But yeah, great job by Glacier Racing, well deserved.
And at the very end of that race, it was Jake Sturgis who came home in the 5th position. In 6th, Martin Conke. 7th, Andre Borcher. 8th is Yuhu Abe. 9th is Johnny Smarlight. And 10th is Marty Piatella. And then Antoine Hegeling, Christian Laurent, Michel Mancusi was able to hold it off from Fulvio Barazzini in those last couple of laps. Ilka Hapada comes home 16th, Mo Garfido 17th, Paul Ailbrink, Kazuki Omishima, and Dion Burgess round out your top 20 in this race. But it was a thinking race here today, Carlos. It wasn't a race of lots of overtaking, but it was a race where you had to race yourself more than the competition. You had to hit your own lap times, because that was the only way you could go to the podium. For Yakoda, for Picarda, and Louise, they did that. But those 2 Glacier Racing drivers, what a deserved result by them.
Almost definitely. I mean, you can see the level of competition of those drivers, because they thought, listen, we can win races. Yes, it's not only Hutu or Hugo Luis or Headline or whatever team is. We can win the races, and they really stepping up those drivers, those younger drivers, let's say, because Gregor Hood for the last 2 races didn't show much. I don't know if Gregor Hood is not practicing a lot, or if the level of the competition is so high right now with Jussi Jacula and Oli Packlin and all those guys. I mean, even for Hugo Luis to finish in 3rd, I mean, behind those guys. I mean, those guys really step up with the game. I mean, they really very fast right now. The class of the field for this race. I mean, whoever. I mean, how can we imagine? I mean, to see Suzuka track that Gregor Houghton knows very well. He knows the strategy, he knows everything, and he finished in 4th. I mean, it's amazing. Even for Jack Sturgis to finish in 5th place, he always collects points. Jack Sturgis, he does his races very clean, very nicely, very meticulous, and he gains position and gains a lot of points all the time. Beautiful race. I mean, I can say that's a beautiful race.
Okay then, so we are just going to run through your final race results from this, the 3rd round of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Alexei Yusiakola in a time of 1 hour, 19 minutes and 41 seconds takes victory by just 0.4 of a second over Oli Picarda. Hugo Luis comes home in 3rd with Gregor Houser in 4th, and then Jake Sturgis running out your top 5. The top 4 drivers separated by just 1.4 seconds on the racetrack. Martin Kroenke in 6th, Andre Porch in 7th, Yuhu Abe in 8th, Jorge Tamada in 9th, and Martin Patilla rounds out your top 10. Yuhu Abe actually set the fastest lap of the race and the last lap of the race in that running racing car. 11th, Jeremy Bouchery. 12th is Antoine Hegelin. Christian Laurent in 13th, Michel Mancusi in the 14th position, Fulvio Barazini in the 15th position. Then Ilka Hapana, Mogar Filo, Paul Ilbrink, Kazuki Omishima, Dion Burgess rounds out your top 20. A total of 22 guys finish on the lead lap. Guys who retired from the race, they are Simon Cattell, Stephen Michaels, Timo Evenen, Enzo Benito, Alexi Aloma, Michelle Shazzini, and Lassie Brunhansen and David Korps. We're going to step aside for just a moment's time, but don't go anywhere. The RaceSpotTV post-race show is next. It'll be live right here after these short messages. So welcome back then to this, the RaceSpotTV post-race show here after the third round of the 2014 iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Alexi Yusiakola taking victory from Oliver Carter. Hugo Louise rounds out the podium, and Gregor Hutu, it's the first time in a long time that he's had back-to-back races without a podium finish. So much more to talk about here from this, the third round of the championship. However, we will start by talking to your race winner. It's the driver that people affectionately call Dracula. He's the guy who set the world on fire in the iRacing.com Pro Series of Road Racing and here at Suzuka. He claims his first ever iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series victory. Alexi Yusiakola, welcome to the top step of the podium. Apparently, we haven't got any Alexi Yusiakola at the moment. We'll try and get him in just one moment's time. However, in the meanwhile, Carlos, first win, not only for Alexi Yusiakola, but the first win for Glacier Racing. This team has now arrived.
Most definitely. It's one of those things in Formula One. If you get your setup ready, your driver's mind on the game, and doing the racing the way you're supposed to be, you work your strategy with your race director. I mean, they talk to each other, they know everything that's happening on the racetrack, and they say, it's like one of those things, sure you can win races in here. You get your whole package all together, and you start winning race. So that was the first one for them, and it's going to be many more for sure, because as you know, when you win one race, it's the other one that's much easier to win. It's very hard to win the first one, but the second one, it's much easier. So I can say that those people they're gonna come down with more winning through the season.
Okay, we'll try again. Alexi Yusiakola, welcome to the top step of the podium.
Hi.
Mora, so what a race it's been for you today. You qualified on the second place on the grid. You only just missed out on pole position by 2/100ths of a second in the dying moments of qualifying. But then, first corner of the race, you did like Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna back in 1990, slipped it down the inside, able to get the job done, and from then, you never looked back.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing race to me because I have raced here a long time, like 10 races already, and I have had a couple of good qualifying, but today everything matched up, and I was able to keep Hugo behind me with the car, and yeah, pretty nice to be here.
First stint of that race, it was never more than about a second between yourself and Hugo Louise. You never really put a foot wrong. There were a couple of very small moments. I remember one in Spoon Curve, one down in the triangle, and used a little bit too much curb. But how daunting was it to have a WCS champion like Hugo Louise right on your tail that entire first stint? And were you worried that perhaps he was able to go a little bit longer than you based upon the way that he was trying to save a little bit of fuel midway through the race?
Well, I was only worried about my teammate Olli because I knew that he has more fuel than I, and I had to push away from him because I know that he will be close after the pits. But yeah, it's nice to have just a complete guy behind you, and in the first stint, and it was who kept me a pressure, and I was able to miss all mistakes, and yeah, nice race.
Well, that second stint, after you came out of pit road and you saw Ollie behind you, but then also saw Hugo Louise and Gregor Hutu right there, how daunting was it knowing that you were closing in on your first ever WCS victory? How difficult was it to just keep your concentration and hit your lines on what today, let's be honest, was very difficult race conditions?
Well, the first 10 laps on the second stint was pretty easy because I had already warmed up tires, and Olli and Gregor had colder ones, and Olli had long seventh gear and less wing, so I knew that Hugo and Gregor would not pass him. But last 10 laps of the race, I did a couple of mistakes. I locked my brakes on the last chicane, and Olli was just right behind me. But I knew that I can make the difference in the first two sectors because I had more wing. So that was kind of it. And the last lap was pretty exciting because there was one lapped car, and they were fighting for the position there, and I think it was a nice finish ever because all 4 guys were under 2 seconds or something.
Yeah, very close to that last lap of the race. We were talking about just how much that lap traffic really could have changed things had it not moved out of the way and that run down into the triangle. But how does it feel to claim Glacier Racing's first ever victory in the WCS, to be another Finnish driver to win a race in the iRacing.com WCS and continue a rich heritage of such drivers winning here? Of course, many people say that Ollie should have won 2 weeks ago, but you did it. You are on the top step of the podium. What does it mean to you and to your team?
Well, in the Pro Series, we already knew that we can make things, and after the Pro Series, we were pretty sure that we can make the car fast enough for the wins. So first 2 races at Spa and Interlagos, we already got the pace, and we just made some errors there and mistakes in the qualifying and the first laps, and so Olli drove well in the first 2 races, but same that there was that clock match thing, so he would not be so top in the points. But we'll see. I think we can keep this up in the middle of the season. I had to skip the Watkins Glen race, but rest of the season should be fine.
Well, congratulations, your first victory in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Savour it. It's going to be something that will stick with you for a very long time. Congratulations to Alexei Usiakola, and the top 2 steps of the podium locked out by Glacier Racing. Olli Pekala, what a start you had there. All the way from where you were 5th, I think, on the grid, all the way to 2nd in those first couple of laps. What a start that was by you.
Yeah, I didn't expect that kind of start too. Every race, I think last year, I failed at the start, and now where the start was the crucial thing in this race, and I just made it. I didn't know what to think. After the first 5 laps, I was thinking that what just happened. I was P3, and in the moment when I was going to turn 1 behind Alexi and Hugo, I was thinking that should I dive bomb because there were room, but luckily I didn't. So, but yeah, like amazing feeling.
4 wide at the start you were at one point there with the guys behind you, as Hutu had a bad start, as did Enzo Benito. But that race for you, you know, you fell back a little bit in those first couple of laps. It was about 3 seconds back. But were you really thinking about that gap in terms of pit stops, knowing that you had more fuel than Alexi Usiakola? And were you trying to find a way of clawing that time back on those last couple of laps before you made your stop? And do you think perhaps with traffic played a little bit better for you, you potentially could have got the race lead?
Yeah, I knew that Alexi had less fuel than I had, so I tried to push all of my guts, and Martin was behind me pushing and giving me pressure. So yeah, it was 10 spot, and I was just thinking, just like you said, that last few laps when guys are pitting, I try to hot lap and gain a position. But yeah, it went close really. If you guys saw it when I exited the pit, and it was less than a half a second to Alexi when we got into the same pace. So it was superbly close, and yeah, I could have been more consistent and faster in my stint, but I rather took a little bit easier and took the car home.
Well, those last couple of laps, it was very close between you, Hugo Louise, and Gregor Hutu. What was going through your head when you saw that traffic, which held up your Cola a little bit, knowing also that you had 2 of the fastest races in WCS history right in your tail as well? Were the nerves going for you? Did you think potentially you could have got your Cola? What was your prerogative then?
Well, I tried many of things. First, I tried to think about the women, but that didn't work. So I tried to follow Alexis apexes and keep my mind out of that Hugo and Gregor are 0.2 seconds away from me. And yeah, that didn't help either. So I didn't know I just and not into the relative bar where the Hugo was, and the mirrors where the Hugo was all over me. So it was pretty tense, but super tense. I've raced for almost all my life, and this was one of the tense plays where I've been.
Well, congratulations, 2nd spot on the podium. We'll get a word with you and Alexei in just a moment's time in finish. But 3rd place in the race today was Hugo Louise in the in the Free ID Motorsports car. I've not done that all race. Now I do it at the end. But Hugo, first 3 rounds of the championship, a 2nd place, a 3rd place, and a 3rd place. You've got all the podium trophies now.
Yeah, hello Will and everyone who's watching iRacing Live. Well, that was one of the, it was one of the closest racing I ever done in my whole life. I had never seen such a close finish in the top 4 like we had today. So I am very happy we could have this kind of racing here. And especially happy because Alexi and Ollie finally got the result they are deserving for a long time. So congratulations for them. Very deserved for Glacier Racing, epic result for them. About the race, I think I didn't have the strategy I really want to, because I was a bit lighter on field on Alexi, and I noticed that in the first 3 laps, because he was slow in the slow corners. So I was trying to think what I was going to do, if I was supposed to save fuel and try to go a lap longer, or just try to attack him, and I decided to just try to save fuel to go a lap longer. Otherwise the gap would be even longer if I pitted 2 laps earlier than I did. So I tried to think as much as I could in the championship, because the race conditions was good for the championship. So I just tried to take care enough to avoid any mistakes, or even having a DNF, because the car was feeling a bit weird in the spoon corner. So I tried to guarantee a third place in this race, which is far from being bad. And let's see what happens in the next few races. Congrats to Glacier Racing again, and I would like to say thanks for Racer for the support this season, and also the 3ID Motorsport for the support.
Now, that start of the race I think was critical for you. Had you been able to get out of the first corner in the race lead, do you think you could have got the race victory? Because you say, did seem to be those first couple laps, you're trying to find a way past Yakoda, wasn't quite able to get the job done. Was that the key moment in the race, that launch from the grid down into those first two corners?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Maybe I could pull some gap to Alexei in the first few laps, which could be enough to come from the pits, maybe very close to him, with him behind, but I'm not sure, because you gain a lot of time if you stay a bit more laps in the track while the others are pitting. So I don't know, to be honest. Maybe not.
And you made a point about the competitiveness of the race, and of course you've been a driver in the WTS now pretty much every season. I'm thinking now about the season, and I'm thinking back to the classic battles between you and Hutu and Jesse and Klaus and all of those other drivers. Are we now back in another glory phase of the WTS where, yes, it's more difficult for you to win races, but the racing's more exciting week on week compared to last season when really it was always a 3ID versus Redline shootout?
Definitely, this season is the most competitive one we ever seen in WCS. I'm looking forward to this season because, as you said, it's impressive what these guys are doing on the track. They are very fast, and I guess this is going to be the best season we ever had.
Well, we'll get Carlos to have a word with you in Brazilian in just a moment's time. We are going to have another chat with Alexei and Ollie. Very quickly, a couple of words in Finnish. Now, I can only say 2 words that I'm allowed to say on the broadcast here. So, moro, kiitos, and tell us about your race in Finnish.
No, olihan se pitkästä aikaa mahtava saada vähän edes tulostakin aikaa, että pari vuotta tässä on yritetty ja nyt sitten kerrankin onnistuu ja yritetään kyllä jatkossa pitää samanlaista tahtia, että harmi, että kauden ekat 2 kisaa meni pilalle, mutta kiitoksia Ollille oikein paljon, että ilman Ollia ei mentäisi näin lujaa, että pitää niinku miehen ruodussa pystyy keskittyä tähän ajamiseenkin ja kiitoksia Glacier Racingille, Datalitteralle, Kari Kankaalalle ja tietysti sitten myös Trellet.net-yhteisölle, kun on kouluttanut musta tämmöisen kuskin. Ja ei muuta kuin, jos joku haluaa pistää sponsorihakemusta, niin antaa tulla vaan, niin löydä autoon tarroja. Kiitoksia. Näkemiin.
Joo, aika mielenkiintoinen kisa oli kyllä. Ja otin, toisin kuin odotin, niin otin varmaan parhaan startin, mitä olen ikinä ottanut. Ja vastaan kaikkia odotuksia, sitten pärähin kolmanneksi siinä. Ja sitten Aleksi pääsi tuon Huukon ohi, joka sitten aika lailla ratkaisi sen, että tässä ollaan niin hyvin lähellä kärkeä. Ja näin sitten päättyi 1-2 Glacierille, että tämä on niin voitto meikäläiselle. Ja just niin kuin Aleksikin sanoi, kiitoksia vaan itselle. Se on ainutlaatuista, että on 2 näin tasaväkistä kuskia tallissa, jotka pystyy taistelemaan voitosta, niin se aina sitten panostaa sitten reenaamaan lisää. Mutta ei mitään. Kiitoksia Datalittera, Glacier TV, Talli ja terveisiä sinne Tammiston puolelle, että noin 40 minuuttia, niin pistäkää kanat tulille, niin meikä tulee.
Congratulations to Glacier Racing, first and second place on the podium. And I tell you what, they've got themselves one of the famous Glacier Racing meetups coming up in just under a month's time. Going to be some amazing moments there. Very quickly, going to hand it over to Carlos Passos. He's going to have a quick word in Brazilian with Hugo Luiz.
Hugo, bom dia. Você fez uma corrida maravilhosa, está liderando o campeonato para 2014, mas hoje uma corrida meio diferente, por quê? Porque geralmente ou na sua frente ou você dividindo para a primeira posição ou segunda posição, você tem geralmente o Greg Arruto. Hoje você viu uma competição completamente diferente, que você viu o Oli Pacla na sua frente e o Alex e a Jacula também na sua frente. Como é que está essa transição toda para ter mais competição, te dar mais vontade de praticar mais? Como é que é isso tudo?
Olá, Carlinhos, todo mundo que está assistindo. Não, como você disse, vários pilotos estão chegando forte essa temporada e como eu disse na entrevista em inglês, essa temporada do Campeonato Mundial vai ser o mais disputado que a gente já viu, da história desse campeonato. Então, eu particularmente fico muito feliz de ver essa competição acontecendo dessa maneira. Por exemplo, o top 4 de hoje foi muito perto um do outro, então eu imagino que nas próximas corridas vai ser bem melhor, bem mais frequente isso acontecer. Então, claro que isso é muito motivador para treinar mais, conseguir tirar o máximo do carro. E como, falando um pouco da corrida, eu não consegui uma largada tão boa, o Alex largou um pouco melhor que eu. E como ele estava mais pesado, eu não pude fazer muita coisa, então eu decidi poupar um pouco de combustível, já que eu estava no vácuo dele. Consegui parar uma volta depois do que eu planejava, mas mesmo assim não foi suficiente para conseguir ganhar muito tempo, já que se ganha muito tempo quando os caras param depois de você. Então eu estava fazendo o máximo para tentar garantir um bom resultado para o campeonato, porque era isso que as condições da corrida estavam me proporcionando, e tentei segurar a terceira posição, e foi isso que eu consegui fazer, felizmente. Foi uma boa corrida para o campeonato, eu estou olhando à frente concernente às próximas corridas. Quero agradecer a equipe e os patrocinadores pelo apoio e também a torcida aí do pessoal do Brasil.
Obrigado, thank you.
Thank you very much there to Hugo Louis, third place on the podium, and he's now been able to get himself a first, second and third place in the first 3 rounds of the championship. In fact, he's replicating his start from the 2013 season in many ways. Now, Jake Sturr just had a very interesting race. He qualified in the 7th position, came home in the 5th position. Jake, it was an up and down race for you, but pit stops really was a crucial moment for you, able to leapfrog a number of drivers ahead of you.
It was a good race. I managed to get by one person with the pit stops. I was able to get by Andre there, and then on the next lap, Martin must have spun or something. In Dunlop, I wasn't exactly sure, but I was able to get by him too, but he was really quick, and he caught me up in that last stint, and I guess the aero push was so bad he couldn't quite get a run, and I was able to hold him off for top 5, which was nice, but hope he's not too mad. He got a pretty good run down in a turn 1 once, and probably turned in a little bit more than I should have, and I'm lucky he didn't hit me there. That would have hurt, but really good pace today, and was might have been able to keep with those top 4 guys if I didn't get held up early on. Enzo was making mistakes every lap, and by the time I was able to get by, I was already 12 seconds back. So after that, I was turning off some pretty good laps and almost went 34 laps. I was really close to making an extra lap there, but decided to play it safe and went 33. And unfortunately, it didn't work out so good for most of my teammates. A couple of them didn't qualify for the race, and the others didn't have very good luck. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but not a bad day for NX with a top 5. And I'd like to thank my sponsors before I forget: Sim Room and V Racing and NX Racing.
Well, as well, you are running double duty, running in both the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series and the NASCAR Peak Anti-Free Series powered by iRacing.com. Now, in that series, you've got 2 24th place finishes and sandwiched by a win. Does that mean when we go to Texas in about 10 days' time, you're going to win again?
Well, I'd like to. It's a pretty similar track to Las Vegas, so if I can save some fuel there, might have a shot. Hopefully the same setup will work. I've had decent luck at Texas in the past. Even though they're all ovals, they're all a little bit different. Instead of Vegas, like you got turn 2 there where the car's incredibly loose, you're almost spinning out. Texas is the opposite. The banking drops off and you're so tight you're almost hitting the wall. But we'll see what we can do. I haven't even turned a lap there yet.
Well, good luck in that one. Jake Sturr is the only driver to run this year in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series and also in the NASCAR Peak Anti-Free Series powered by iRacing.com. Thank you very much for talking to us, Jake. We'll see you, of course, on PSR TV at Texas and then back here on RaceSpot in 2 weeks' time. Before we go any further, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a new member to iRacing.com, you can become a part of iRacing for as little as $5 due to the multitude of offers available right now on iRacing.com. You can get your first month's membership for just $5, or if you'd like a longer membership of either 3 months, 1 year, or 2 years, all of them are all right now 50% off. Head over to iRacing.com for more details and to join the world's most realistic racing simulator with over 45,000 members worldwide. Carlos, before we go off there, final thoughts.
Well, we saw amazing racing, and we saw something different because we see somebody else, some other teams come in the front and win the race. So I think as everybody, Hugo and all the drivers that are here knows that they step up and they are to another level that has never seen before. So this year is going to be the year of competition. So we might see, even though depends on the actual races, we're going to see maybe different teams coming ahead as well. So we might see different people winning races. So I think this is going to be the most fight championship and the World Series here at the Grand Prix.
Scott, what an amazing race. It wasn't a race of overtaking, but a race of strategy here today.
And it's one of the best I think we've seen in terms of a race where it was decided by strategy rather than overtaking. And I think the great thing is that effectively we have seen 2 new stars and 2 major championship contenders born in the space of that race, in terms of Alexei Usyakova and Ollie Picard. They put in 2 stellar drives today combined, and Glacier Racing should be very proud of their achievement today. And it does serve as a wake-up call for the likes of Gregor Hutu, Hugo Luis, and some of the other top drivers, that they can't be complacent. They can't be expecting to be up at the front and be challenged all the time. Now, of course, I'm not saying that they do, but of course, obviously, they cannot just rest on their laurels and expect that they are going to be at the front every time, because there are these new young up-and-coming drivers coming through who are proving they can race with the best up at the front, and they can, as proved today, they can be beaten. So this is going to be an exciting prospect, an exciting story that's going to run all the way through to the end of the season. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm immensely looking forward to Road America, because I say if we can add in a bit more overtaking on a circuit like Road America, then I say more of the same for the rest of the season, please, because that was one awesome race to watch from a strategy point of view rather than an overtaking one. And that's not something that anyone says every day when it comes to motorsport.
Very quickly, before we go, we never allowed Jake Sturgis to say some words in his native language. So, Jake, would you like to say something in your own native language?
American? Or,
yeah.
Walmart, McDonald's, cheeseburger, all done.
Well done, though. See, we have a little bit of fun here on RaceSpotTV. However, that does really round up our coverage of this, the 3rd round of the championship. Before we go, just a couple of facts. The fastest lap of the race that was actually set in the last lap there by Yuhu A. We had a total of 4 lead changes in this race. And, of course, we had a new winner on the top step of the podium, really, as Glacier Racing showed that they are here, and they are here to stay in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series. Don't forget, immediately prior to each of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series races, RaceSpotTV presents WCS Spotlight. Join myself, Will Vincent, and Nick Rowland before every race as we review all of the issues, the incidents, the trials, the tribulations from 2 weeks previous, as well as talking to top name drivers, and also looking forward to the race that is coming up live on RaceSpotTV. That is WCS Spotlight, brought to you by RaceSpotTV, 1 PM GMT, live on Glacier TV. Also, don't forget, PSR TV return of their coverage of the NASCAR Peak Anti-3 Series, powered by iRacing.com. The 4th round of the championship will take place on April 8th at the Texas Motor Speedway. 167 laps. It will be live on PSR TV, MRN, and iRacing Live at 9 PM Eastern, 1 AM GMT. And that is the NASCAR Peak Anti-3 Series, powered by iRacing.com. The next time the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series kicks itself into higher gear will be on April 12th at Road America. 47 laps around the toughest challenge in all of Road American racing, and that will be here on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live in just 2 weeks' time. April 12th, start time for that will be 2 PM GMT, 10 AM Eastern Time. Today at Suzuka, we saw Alexei Yusiakola take the lead at the first corner from Hugo Louise and never looked back, taking his first victory in the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series, and the first for Glacier Racing, who with a 1-2 finish showed that they are here to stay in the World Championship and they mean business. Hugo Louise is able to knock out the podium in third. Gregor Hutu, it's the first time in over 2.5 years that he's had back-to-back races off of the podium. We'll bring you more about that on our story on iRacing News in the coming days. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this, the third round of the championship. For myself, Will Vincent, from Scott Woodward, from Carlos Passos and Rafael Sank on cameras, this has been a RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live presentation of the iRacing.com World Championship Grand Prix Series from the Suzuka International Racing Course. We'll see you all in 2 weeks' time as we go and face the daunting Canada Corner. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.